Okay, ARB, you are live, you are recording, phone lines are open, you are good to go.
Thank you so much, Matt. Welcome. My name is Kathleen Cunningham. I'm the chairwoman of the Architectural Review Board of the Town of East Hampton. Welcome to our February 24th, 2022 meeting. I want to thank all the staff at LTV and all the staff at the Planning Board, at Council, and all our support people for helping us move through this calendar year. We have a lot of changes that we're making to streamline the process for both the board, applicants, and we will soon be having professional planning staff advice for in the form of memos for most submissions that are set before this board. We're going to be announcing a new application form very soon, which will also streamline the process. It'll be familiar to many people who have been before these agencies before, because it's much like that in the planning board. But we're really looking forward to this, and I want to thank everyone who's been working so hard to get us to this point. It's been a real whirlwind. This is only our fourth meeting, I think, of the calendar year. So bravo, everyone, and thanks for your support. All right, so I've opened the meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 10th, 2022, please?
So moved.
A second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, so carried. Okay. Our first application, which is changed to commercial. Now, I think this is Lori. Is Lori here?
Just give everybody a second, I admitted everybody.
Okay. I don't see her.
Would have done that because people defined themselves by.
It's so unusual. Okay. Can I ask people, if you're not speaking or you haven't been recognized by the chair to speak, to mute your audio, because we get feedback on that sometimes. So if Lori's not here, I'm going to move on to the next application, and then when she pops in, we'll put her back up, okay? Because I don't want to address this application without the applicant present. David, right?
I don't see Britton either.
Okay, then we'll just have to, maybe everybody's having a little bit of a slow time getting on. I had a slow time getting on.
Lori's in and Britton will be in.
Okay, cool. We just need Lori for the moment, but Britton's next, so we want to make sure she's next up. Okay.
Okay, just stand by.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Matt. There's Lori.
Hi, I was on,
Hi.
but no one was letting me in, so I went out.
I had the same problem.
And there's Britton. Okay.
All right, great. We're good to go. Okay, so the first application is Megrin Realty, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-49-3-16, 45 Euclid Avenue, Montauk. And that's my application, and it's really just kind of a wrap up. We looked at this at our January 27th meeting, and the application needed cut sheets for lighting specs that were dark sky compliant. The applicant has submitted those. So I think we're good to go with these, unless anybody has any other comments or questions. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Not at all. I think we've wrapped it up. It's good.
Okay. Everybody else good?
Yes.
Okay, great. So then let's, do I have to make a motion for this? Remind me what I have to do here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Someone has to make a motion.
You have to make a motion.
Thank you. Okay, I make a motion to accept the submission of 45 Euclid Avenue as the application of 45 Euclid Avenue as submitted with the cut sheets for the lighting, demonstrating lighting compliance. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, so we're carried. All right, Lori,
Great.
good to go. Boy,
Thank you.
nice when it goes cleanly, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's hope it's a good pattern. We're setting a good pattern. All right, enjoy your evening. Okay, the next application is also changed to commercial, 12 Amagansett Square, LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-172-12-6, PO Box 7132, Amagansett. This is Britton here?
Yes.
I'm here.
Where are you, dear? Why can't I? Ah, there you are. Okay, thank you. I'm scanning the screen. Okay, great. Okay, and Frank, this is yours.
Great. So this is the form. Do we want to put up any photos or anything? This is in Amagansett Square, the former site of Hampton Chutney.
Excuse me, has it been read into the record?
I did read it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay. If we could bring up just a photo of this and potentially okay. So this is the building that's the former site of Hampton Chutney. You might be familiar with. The applicant is requesting approval to modify the existing structure as follows: addition of new doors, 6 new doors, 3 windows on all 4 existing elevations to match all other windows and doors throughout the buildings in Amagansett Square, which are white Anderson with divided lights and white trim. After reviewing this application, and looking at the architectural drawings, it's stated on the elevations, which if we could bring that up, that would be great. It's stated on the elevations that there would be new exterior lights. It's the next page. Right. If you zoom in perhaps on the north elevation bottom right, you'll see it's called out, and you can see in several elevations, new exterior light, glare buster, white exterior wall mount. No cut sheets were provided for this fixture and is not listed on the application. So my first question is, can we review this application? Is this incomplete?
Yeah, that's a good question. It doesn't seem to me we can if we're.
If I may speak, Chairman?
Sure.
So the glare buster, Britton Bistrian representing Amagansett Square. As you know, there's 12 properties, 10 buildings in Amagansett downtown. I've represented, I guess, all of them, all 9 buildings except for this one over the course of since 2002, so 20 years. That's frightening. And so when this was reviewed in the planning board and also in the architectural review board, it was reviewed comprehensively, all because there was, we don't take signage by building, we take signage overall for the whole property. We have never historically taken lighting by building, but as part of our site plan approval, when we did Meeting House Restaurant was our last major review under the planning board, that spec was approved throughout the square. So all of the lights that light the pathways and this glare buster fixture on every single building and part of our site plan approval. So I don't think, and maybe I would ask David to clarify, I don't think that it needs to be reviewed again since it was part of the planning board approval.
Okay, David, can you jump in on that? I mean, I think as a practical matter, because you've had such history with this, Britton, you have that overall comprehensive overview. But as we're dealing with these things as individual applications, without having the benefit of that background, I don't know that we would have been able to draw those same conclusions. But I think the application, the way we're proceeding with this in terms of the file and what we'd like to have referenced is to have those fixtures there, have that fixture available for this particular application, even though I understand completely your point about it being, there's one whole.
Can I ask, has the fixture ever come up before the architectural review board?
Yes.
It was approved.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if we can find that reference, and just incorporate this into that application, that would solve the problem. David, are you with us here?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So just to make sure I understand the question, the light fixtures were previously approved when this was before the ARB in a different application, and now.
Well, it's a whole group of, the whole group of stores was approved, and I think the light fixtures are universal. Isn't that correct?
Yes, but there was an entire planning board application that didn't deal with any structures, that only dealt with the if anybody remembers Amagansett Square, used to have asphalt walkways.
Yes.
We changed all the walkways to a specific brick specification.
Right.
We also did the, if you think the post mounted lanterns,
Yep.
and it was a planning board approval that was only for brick walkways, post lights, and every building code required light on a building, because these are the only reason we're adding these lights is because a door requires a 2-foot candles of egress. So that there was a planning board approval that approved the post lights, the wall lights, and the brick and the landscaping throughout the whole square, because we couldn't look at it as individual lots since the walkways crossed and the lights crossed. And so they gave a planning board approval, and I can submit that to the board's file.
That
or
would
you
be
can remove
perfect.
Yeah, I don't think that it's already been reviewed and approved by this board. So
Right.
I don't think it needs to be re-reviewed. I don't think we could change it without going back to the planning board.
Right. I understand that now, but as I said in the beginning, this being part of a whole, and we're just looking at the part without the benefit of the understanding of what the whole had been, it puts those of us who are new to this at a disadvantage.
Yeah,
So-
it's all on the property card. So if anybody, and maybe this is moving into what the board's dealing with, that you're gonna have
Yes.
a planner, right? Any planner would have
Exactly.
seen this approval on the property card.
Right, exactly. So that's part of what we're trying to, yeah, okay. So
it was approved by the planning board, but was it reviewed? It was reviewed by the architectural review board?
Yes, it's a planning board of approval requires ARB approval.
Okay.
So yes.
it's
Okay.
usually contingent upon,
All right.
ARB approval.
I
But I mean, maybe we can do some sort of conditioned thing here where if we can make reference to that planning board and ARB approval that Britton mentions, we can move this along then.
That's fine.
Providing that, everything has been, it jives up and we can attach to this, that information so we know where we are with this individual piece.
Yeah, I think if the elevations just also had stated like as previously approved by
That would have helped.
Hampton Planning Board, then we would have known that.
Sure.
It's on the application.
Is it?
Is it?
It says, the windows and doors, the windows and doors to match all other windows and doors throughout the square. So, and lights, but
Right.
not
well, it
mentioning
doesn't
lights.
indicate an approval. Yeah. Okay. I mean, as we're saying, we're going to try to tighten all this up and, in like 4 weeks, if you had submitted this, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. but let's find a way to, I need someone to make a motion on this that makes sense and connects all these dots. I'm not sure I'm the
Can I
person
ask,
to do it.
so can we review the, what is under consideration here about the windows and doors?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay, so let's go, if we can bring up the architectural drawings again, please. Okay, so this is the north side. It's a little hard to switch. I realize maybe you could toggle, but if we could toggle between existing and proposed and make them both the same size, there we go. So let's perhaps start with the main elevation, which is the top right, the west elevation. The window unit, right, okay, so that is the existing elevation. Let's go to the proposed elevation. So those two, there's a double unit, right, that's going to be replaced with a double door. That's the west elevation. To the left of that, on the north elevation, which also faces the square, there are 3 windows. Those will be replaced with 3 French doors with 2 code compliant lights between them. And then on the other elevation facing the parking lot, which is the south elevation, the addition of 2 window units to the left of the door, you will see.
Okay.
So that is the proposed change in scope and addition of the windows. My assessment of this is I think it is the changes proposed on the main elevation, which is the west elevation. I'm calling the main elevation. The entrance is acceptable. It conforms with the architecture of the rest of Amagansett Square. The same can be said of the north elevation, which is below it. I have some concerns about the architectural conformity and in keeping with I would call the character and the quality of the window fenestration throughout Amagansett Square as it relates to the south elevation. Although this is somewhat fenced, perhaps, Britton, you could, I'm not sure if you could elaborate on why those windows would be needed, or at least they need to be right up against the door jamb there. Every single window in Amagansett Square, unless it, I didn't see any windows that were butting a door like that in elevation.
So the south elevation is sort of what we would call the back of house. It is completely fenced in with stockade fencing. It's the, employee entrance. It's where the dumpster is. It's where all the dirty stuff happens. And the intent of adding those two windows on the west side of the door is there's a countertop there, a workspace behind it, so it can't go down to the floor like the.
In terms of the plan layout, I don't think there's a wall there behind, is my recollection of the back house. But
I don't think that something like 8 inches. I'm just trying to open the plan on another screen. I don't see that 8 inches would be undoable.
it seems a little tight to the window there.
Yeah, I agree.
Frankly.
To the door, you mean, right?
To the door, right?
Yeah, I agree. All the other improvements that you're suggesting are balanced and symmetrical, and this just seems kind of smushed in there. I fully understand and have been there and understand the need for some sunlight in that area. But even if you just push it off the doors, Frank is suggesting a little bit, I think it might serve the same purpose and just not be, be more.
Yeah, I think
8
inches is doable. If I go too much more than that, I do have the stair that goes to the mezzanine, so might have a head height issue. But if you just want some nominal space between them, I can absolutely accommodate that.
Yeah, just so it's more in keeping with the elevation of all the buildings there, where there's a rhythm of the fenestration throughout the elevations.
If I may, what is the reason for the 2 exterior lights here as opposed to just the one next to the door? What's the actual use? You said it's like an employee entrance or something like that. It has dumpster and it's not the most appealing area. What's the point of lighting it with the 2?
It's just to provide there's a ramp right there. So the ramp goes up to the door, and I need to meet building code for the extent of the ramp to the door. So it's just for code.
Okay. So from the beginning of the ramp to the door.
Correct. So it's just inside the beginning of the ramp. So it's so that it's uniformly meets that 2-foot candles.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So is there enough space to, I assume you'd want to push the ramp a little west, a little left, looking at the plan? If we can go back to the first page. I assume that's fine code-wise to still meet it. Next
right.
page.
The ramp's not changing. We're not proposing to change it.
Well, I think if you shift the windows, you'd want to shift the ramp, but that's up to the architect. Okay.
Yeah, it's not meant for anything other than just like wheeling in food and providing employee access, handicapped access if necessary. So it was recently rebuilt. I don't think we need to rebuild it, but I'm happy to move the windows to the west 8 inches.
Great.
Shift.
I also wanted to ask about the lighting, though it's been approved. Is it of concern for the ARB that it seems like if you bring up the photos again, if you scroll through them, all the other buildings do have the existing lighting. So once this is changed, can you go one picture back? That's the fixture right there. Okay.
That's the glare buster, dark sky fixture in between the door and the window. So those were the fixtures that we used when we just needed to meet building code. And the larger gaslight fixtures were sort of to denote the main entrance on each of the structures in the square.
So
we're removing the gaslight fixture off the building.
No, it's on the,
Oh, it stays. Okay.
it should stay.
Yeah.
The
No,
graphic,
it's being removed.
it should not be removed. So I can
Okay.
amend that. It's
Okay.
that's the gaslight fixture is to remain.
Okay, great.
So I'm sorry, my confusion then, I was picturing this ramp to be parallel to this facade, but it's actually perpendicular. So I'm not quite clear on why that explanation about the light.
Because there's stairs on the west side of the ramp as well as the east side, and the east side light doesn't satisfy the building code for the west side.
Okay, and because the window was so jutted up against the door, you couldn't put it between the window and the door.
We could
Is that
do that now, I guess.
It looks like in plan that the ramp is going to be modified. The entrance is going to be modified. That ramp will be rotated 90 degrees up against the
That's
building.
what I was looking at in the plan. That's why I'm surprised to see the picture. Yeah.
Right.
I believe that the existing ramp is to remain. It was recently redone, as you can see from that photograph.
Okay.
I think it's to remain. I'm not seeking approval for a new ramp.
So going to the west elevation, and I was keeping on the photos, I just want to scroll through the remainder of the photos of the other buildings on Amagansett Square. So in other buildings, and I think it seems to me that the entrance to this new retail or restaurant structure, I'm not seeing any other of these glare buster fixtures on what I would call the main elevation. So
Because they're all in the back of house elevations. You're not the
right,
back
but
side of all the buildings.
right, but if you go to the west elevation architectural drawing, there are two fixtures. Next page. There's a fixture between the main entrance and yeah, you were there. Thank you. There's a fixture. There are two fixtures there. So are both of those going to become gaslight?
The west elevation, that's an error. That light at the north side of the west elevation is an existing gaslight fixture
Right.
to remain. The
What
other
happens
one.
with the other one?
The other one is the proposed glare buster, because these gaslight fixtures have they were custom made. They've got a 6-month, probably 9-month lead time. So we only have 2 fixtures approved for the square, and one we can't get for a lengthy amount of time. So that was why that was chosen, just to meet building code. And they do, they blend into the facade. I wish there was a photograph of the east side of the building to the north, which is what we call the stable. Used to be an old stable, because you don't even see these lights. They sort of just blend into the siding.
I noticed that the doors on the other buildings did not have divided lights, whereas these do.
Some of them do and some of them don't.
Okay, so that's not a consistent choice.
Those ones don't. That one does. The cheese shop does. This
one does.
Mandala Yoga and Jenny Kane does. We're just, not everything is precisely uniform. there's some variations on the theme in the buildings.
Okay.
So I guess my only question, I guess, for other members of the board would be, are we okay with having one gas light and one glare buster versus requesting 2 gas lights on that elevation?
I mean, I would be more concerned about almost in a sense, about the one also facing north, which has, I think, also the glare busters. I mean, they're hardly noticeable, the glare busters, but those, this is what you see from this street, really.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think that those humongous lamps would look ideal on that facade, but there's 3 doors, right?
There are 3 doors. There's a.
Is it to be a restaurant?
No, it's a retail food store. Just like it's a similar occupancy than Hampton Chutney was, just redone.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't favor the mix and match of the glare buster with the gas lamp. I don't have an affinity for either one as a fix, as a lighting fixture, but and I understand that you need it sooner. You can't, things being as they are now, you can't wait 9 months to put this thing up. But I have mixed feelings about using, 2 different styles of fixture in that one elevation, especially as they're all, it's inconsistent with the rest of the
square.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could, if you can approve the glare busters and give it I don't know how it's enforceable. I mean, David might have to help me here, but you could say within a year, we would flip them out for the gas lights. I could do that, but I can't fix that. I can't get these when this store.
I understand that. Yeah.
I only have 2 fixtures that were approved for the square. So I'm sort of up against the wall.
Right. There's not too many choices. Well, what do you think, Frank?
Well, I think I would be okay with having glare busters on the north elevation where the 3 proposed doors are. I think the elevation would look would look pretty tight and busy. I think my concern is having the glare buster added next to the door on the west elevation. I am wondering and thinking that perhaps a gas light there would at least give some relief to a kind of a flat elevation there.
Mm-hmm.
And also announce it is perhaps a little more of the kind of the primary elevation, which it historically has been.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you generally approach this site, this building, at least from the parking lot.
Yeah.
So I would be, that's my view. I think I would be fine with the glare buster on the north elevation, 2 of them, one between each proposed door. But I'm not fully comfortable with a glare buster to the right of what is currently that double window becoming a door.
Okay, what do you propose for that?
Well, I think we have 2 selections. It's either the gas light or the.
Okay, so
we
are
wouldn't
you
want to introduce
recommending
another
the gas
fixture.
light for that space? Because I think Britain needs, I think the lights she's applying for are lights she's required to install. So I want to just try to give her some direction. And I think it's great that she's willing to, flip it out once the fixture is available. I think that's a really good compromise. But,
I think I would prefer that, having another gas light there. If you look to the right of the building there, the spacing of 2 fixtures there on the former chutney of this building in question would be about the same as what it looks like it would be on the right there.
Right.
And also, it's just, if you look at which page, go back a couple of pages. One more. That one.
Right.
Sort of in that row, there are these gas lights along there.
Yes. Yeah, it would be more consistent. Right. Okay. Am I rushing you? Do you have anything further?
That's it for me.
Okay. And do any other board members have any other comments?
I'm wondering, will those picnic tables persist? I mean, it had such a different character.
Mhm.
Just curious.
I can't comment on
You
the
don't
picnic
know.
tables.
It's so, unusual to see it all.
Will the
cleaned
menu
up.
change?
It's nice. I mean, it looks very nice.
Could I just, Chairwoman, could I just
Sure.
make sure that I'm clear on
Yeah.
what the board is asking and just kind of go over it? I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So put an 8-inch on the south elevation. I want to put an 8-inch space between the west side of the door and the east side of the first window moving to the west.
Yes.
And I am on the west elevation. The glare buster at the north is actually an existing gas light to remain.
Right.
My light to the south on the west elevation will be a glare buster to be swapped out with a gas light as soon as it's ready, but not more than a year. I can't imagine that. I'm just guessing. I know they took 9 months to get when we ordered them originally, but I'm thinking COVID maybe add 3 months.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And that the north elevation is approved as drawn.
Correct.
And
I
there's
would
no
only
change to
add
the east.
this 8-inch dimension. I would request that I just sort of threw that number out there. I would say move that window preferably more than 8 inches.
I think she's constrained by the stairwell, so
right.
maybe.
However, it's how much you can feasibly move it. I would say
Okay.
minimum of 8 inches.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that's great. So we've got that figured out. Does anybody else have any other comments? Are we in agreement then on this? I don't,
So can I make a motion?
please do.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the application with amendments as noted regarding the light fixtures and the spacing and the location of the new windows on the south elevation.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're carried. And Britton, we'll send you a follow-up letter with this, but I see you're taking good notes. So
Thank you.
I think you'll be able to proceed then. All right, thanks a lot. Enjoy your evening. Okay, next up for business sign is Hildreth Real Estate Advisors. This is represented by Denise Fenchel. I saw her. Yep, she's there. Denise is here. That's good. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-172-06-033136 Main Street, Amagansett. This is Chips.
This application is for 2 new signs on a new clothing store in the large stucco 1920s building as you enter Amagansett. It is to the left of the mobile station, so it's the first commercial building on that south side of the street. 3 stores. 3 stores face the road. This is the middle one of the 3 stores, and we're looking at it now. It's the smallest. The first sign requested would be placed over the lintel that runs the width of the storefront. The lintels and the keystones are on each storefront, and they are the major architectural detail of the building. So the lintels are the long strip above the glass, and then that large keystone is in the center of each lintel. Denise and I chatted yesterday about this when I was on site, and after speaking with her yesterday, we agreed that her proposed new sign should be the size of the lintel and cover it, not bigger. So that would be 12.5 inches high and 130 inches long, which is about an 11.3 square foot sign. The keystone would be the center and would be visible in part as she has indicated on this photoshopped image. The second sign, which is a little bit more imaginary would be in the window. It's where those dots are, those colored dots. The colors on the dots relate to the colors on the gray sky sign. And this sign would measure 16 and a half inches tall and 57 inches long for 6.6 square feet. Yeah. Denise, do you want to talk a little bit about it further?
Denise, are you there? I know she was on the screen. Maybe she's having trouble unmuting or something.
Well, the thing
Why
I
don't we
wrestled
carry
with
on
is...
till we get her.
Okay, so the thing I wrestled with is there's the two current stores, Gloria Jewel, and there's some sort of, I think, computer shop on the far left. Don't use the lintel space at all. Those signs are kind of hard to see. So to give, commercial sense to this, I don't like hanging signs on architectural details, but given the nature of this building, there really is no other place for them to put that McRae Sky sign. So I'm actually fine with it. I'll see what the other board members think.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
I think it's jarring.
I agree. I think that I go by that building and I always can see that Gloria Jewel on the window. It's very visible. And to then disrupt that facade with one sign in the middle that would have the sign in the lintel and the window sign, I think it will deter from the architecture. I don't think it will be a good addition.
I agree.
I would add that going forward, if we were to approve that, I think we would expect that every tenant there would start to put signs up on above their storefronts. Just seems we're making a precedent here that I'm not comfortable with, and it's doing something to the architecture of the building, but we're not making it any better, and I think we're making it worse.
Yeah.
The only thing I considered was that these other two stores are twice the width of this little store in the middle. So Denise and I talked about putting a sign on the upper part of the glass that blocks the light. And it's a very hard store to put signage on.
Excuse me, board.
Yeah, is Denise on the phone?
She called in through the phone line. I can unmute her and put her through.
Oh, that would be so great, because we've been wanting to hear from her. Thank you. Denise,
Hi,
are you
everybody.
there?
Yes,
Hi.
I am. Can you hear me now? Hi
Yes,
there.
we can. Thank you for persevering.
So Denise, have you heard what we just talked about a little bit?
Yes, I did. That you could deter from the architectural details of the building. We did try putting the lettering above the what's it called, the pintle, the triangle piece, and it looked hideous up there because it was too tight between the dark green sills of the windows and that triangle. And then the customer came up with the idea of putting it along that band, as I showed you there in the drawing.
Right.
I would also add that if we were to approve this, we would need to have, I would want to see some architectural detail of how this actually gets affixed to the building. Is it a plank of wood, or is this just painted on, or?
No, it was actually three-dimensional letters affixed to a board, affixed to a painted substrate. So the board itself would have dimension to probably 3/4 of an inch, and then the letters themselves would also have dimension, individual letters. And it would have to be, since the triangle is raised off the building a little bit, we'd have to just put blocks behind the sign a little bit to come off the same amount as the triangle. So there'd be a little air gap between the sign and the building.
I'd like to weigh in too. I have problems with using this architectural feature, which I think is, it's recalled over those, it's echoed through those three storefronts there. And I don't think we should be incorporating architectural features of this nature, because it's one of the nicer features of this building, into the signage. So I'm not down with that. The other problem that I'm having is the color scheme.
Yeah, that's their logo.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that feels too Miami Beach to me. So I don't find that harmonious with, you know, the I mean, it doesn't have to be black or white, but if it could be one color, I might could get behind that. But I think the multicolored nature of this thing, I find the dots less problematic if they're in the store window, but to have that big sign above it with those bright colors is not, it doesn't feel characteristic in keeping with that building's, you know, pretty stately.
Kathy, what if they thought about using pin letters, which is often a solution for a situation like this, where the letter is just, you know, it's the letter itself and it gets pinned onto the building?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were talking about. Putting, instead of having a backer board, we could just go with pin lettering along there and just have, you know, a little bit of a space behind each letters, which we do quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And that would tone
It's
it
a
down
very
a lot.
standard. Yeah, it would tone it down.
Yeah.
It's a very standard solution, and it kind of works with the architecture.
I think I would favor that more, but I'm still not. I still don't favor that color scheme. I recognize that it's their logo, but you know, we went down this path with 7-Eleven too back in the day. So you know, we have to keep our standards here.
I sort of lost where the proposed pin letters would be, but
on the lintel.
Yeah, my vote would be to, I am opposed to putting any lettering on the lintel.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One is that it's sort of messing with the architecture. I think the lettering needs to stay within, either on the glazing or within the green storefront. And also the lintels are not even. So once you start introducing lettering above one, the tenant to the left is going to argue that they might have the right to put lettering above theirs. And so you're going to have uneven lettering on the elevation, which is not going to be good.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to abandon doing anything with the lintels. I empathize with the applicants on the difficulty of finding a place here, but I think we have to go back, take another look at this and come up with something else.
Is there a way for me to send somebody a file right now of another alternative that they can pull up?
Yeah, not right now. We'll have to put you back on. We've got a very full agenda, and
I would just add that every tenant in there has the same issue. So
right, yeah. So what we do here is going to be important in terms of setting a precedent for anybody else that comes through. So
can we have? Can you give me an idea of if we're going to be setting a precedent? Because we've been talking to the IT guy to the left, and then there's another store going on the right. What do you see as a vision for this building so that I can direct the customers, you know, the right way? Do you see? What do you see?
That's a good question, but it's a hard one. I don't know. What is your sense of this?
Who?
Frank?
I don't have any issue with color in the signage. As long as it stays within the green, and as long as it's of a reasonable scale, I would be comfortable with that. To me, it's just as long as it's in the window. To me, that's where the signage should be.
And with this customer, we have another rendition of just the lettering in the upper part of the window, and then their spots down below, lower, and it could be kept within just the window frame, you know, like Gloria Jewell does, and not on the building at all. But it is all those colors again.
I assume those colors reflect the merchandise in the store. It's either children's or something like that. So, I mean, I wouldn't object to it if it were on the window and it was multicolored.
Yeah.
Because what's inside the store will probably, like Gloria Jewel, it's all neutral colors. I'm sure it will be very colorful merchandise. And I mean, you need something to sell yourself, but as long as it's just on the window.
Can we go back to the rendering that shows the proposed signage again?
No.
Is that it? No, I think the one before.
Yeah,
No. I guess
that was
the
it.
next page is, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with that. Well, I mean, I think we've given you some indications of, if you can come up with something that's within the window, maybe that's the best way to approach this. We're not the creative team here, so if you can come back to us
looking
with
for
some
direction.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't. We could sit on this all night, and these things are never well designed by committee. So why don't you go back and start with the suggestion that something that's within the glass would be more acceptable to the board. Are members in favor of that direction for the applicant?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then when we'll take it up again. I'm sorry we don't have better information for you, Denise, but we have to make it. This is an important decision here because whatever we do here will likely be replicated down the street, and hopefully you'll get that business. But we want to make sure we're making the right call. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time. Okay.
All right. Excellent. Sure thing.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
All right. On to the next. Fences, walls, gates, and berms. Should be some kind of a chant. John Rayo and Kimberly Doughtenhan. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did. That was a great job. Good afternoon.
Woo! Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-39-2-31, 12 Asher Place. I hope I pronounced that correctly. East Hampton. Frank, you're on again. The Frank show tonight. And
Can
is
we bring
our
up the photos,
applicant present?
Yes, we are both here.
Okay, excellent. Great. Oh, there you are. Hi.
So that's an old photo. Can we bring up the
That was the
PDF
original.
with with the photos? Not that one. Next one. There we go. Starting with the first. So the applicant is seeking approval for an as-built fence in the Clearwater section of Springs. I went out on site and measured it. The gate is 7 feet 4 inches above grade. And without pulling up the information, that I believe it was 23 feet from the pavement, which was what is on the application. Other property that does have a fence but no gate on this street that is a compliant 4-foot gate. Does the applicant want to add anything to this?
Sure.
Sorry
Can you hear
about
us?
that. That's
No
me.
worries.
Sorry.
Right. So the original gate that was there, you had a picture of it, the half circle. I think it was 4 feet on the sides and 5 feet in the middle. The reason that we want to putting this gate in is to deter deer from entering the property for the safety of our dog and the safety of our landscaping that we've done a ton of to minimize our impact on the neighborhood as it relates to fences. The netting that you're talking about is on the front of that privet. The real fencing is 4 foot, 1 by 1 inch black wire steel, so it's invisible to the naked eye, pretty much. So we've done everything to try and minimize our impact on the neighborhood, but also keep deer out of the property because our dog winds up eating what the deer kindly leave behind, and we've gone to the vet several times because of it. There's other benefits of having that fence. It is transparent, so it doesn't block the view of the property. My wife and I had gotten a quote from a contractor, which I added to the permit application to build it was either a 7 or 8 foot gate. There was no mention of needing a permit to do it as long as we stayed below 8 feet. That is incorrect. We've now come to find out. Obviously, that's why we're here today. Walking around and driving around our entire neighborhood, which is Clearwater, and other neighborhoods within the town of East Hampton, there are gates of various sizes that are similar to this. I've added some pictures in our permit application that vary between 5 and 8 feet tall, and various distances from the street to the actual gate. So when I had done my limited due diligence and gotten the quote and then did my own investigation around the neighborhood, I designed a gate that I thought was in keeping with the aesthetics of other properties in Clearwater Beach. Obviously, I didn't do enough due diligence to realize that I needed a permit, but I wound up building that gate my own during COVID as a COVID project because the project quote that I had received was out of control in terms of pricing. So that's how we wound up with the gate that we have today. It's been up since the summer of 21, and Officer Linda, I don't want to butcher her last name, she was the one that I've been in touch with in terms of getting in touch with the ARB to see if we can get a variance for this gate. There are other gates at the end of the road that are right on the main road that are 6 feet tall, and it's a stockade gate around the entire property, as close, if not closer, to the road. And there are other properties you'll see in the pictures that I included around the neighborhood that are all of similar setback and either same size, just below it at 6 feet, which is still in violation, or 8 feet tall. So that's why we're here today, to see if we can get a variance for our gate, which is prevalent within our neighborhood as well as the rest of the town if you drive around, and certainly south of the highway.
Okay, I will add, I drove around the neighborhood a bit. I drove on the street at the end of your street. I drove down Underwood, which is in back of you. I drove down the street to the north of you. There is one at the corner of sort of like 1 block up from you where there's a gate that is compliant at 4 feet. I drove by dozens of properties that the vast majority of lots there do not have gates or have their front yards fenced in with like this with 6 foot poles. So we can go back to the page of, I think it's page 3, but my finding is that this is out of context for the neighborhood that you live in.
So we walk our dog around the entire neighborhood. So the gates that are above 4 feet tall are all out of spec and out of compliance?
Probably.
Possibly, probably.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is that our block, Ayrshire Place, is a very small block. So, while there may not be other gates on our immediate block that are, consistent with the one that we built, they certainly do exist within the Clearwater Beach community. As he said, we walk all around on all different blocks, and we took pictures of the gates. And, that was actually what convinced us to build the gate, was because we were walking around and seeing what everybody else had. And, so we had no reason to think that a gate such as ours would be non-compliant, because they're so prevalent in our neighborhood, not on our exact block. You are right about that, but it is a very short block. I mean, there's like 8 houses on our block. So
I would have to disagree that it is vastly prevalent in your neighborhood that you would have gates. My finding and observation is it's the opposite, that a gate is, they do exist, but they're rare. If someone has built something that doesn't conform, it's unfortunate to you as a homeowner to play by the rules, but that's something that code enforcement has to take up.
Would
Right.
it be helpful
I'd
for
like
us to
to-
provide the addresses?
Excuse me 1 minute.
of the
I'd like to
gates?
give you some
No,
direction.
no.
I'd like to give you some direction. Excuse me. I'd like to give you some direction. One of the problems that we face as this board, sorry, am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, is that, nice homeowners like you who think you're following the rules or have a semblance of the character, walk around and see what's there. And a lot of the stuff that's out there hasn't been approved. So it's not the best example to model your design from. What needs to happen is what's happening now, or this should have, you should have come to us with a proposal and we could have advised you as to what would be more acceptable. And we'd be going through this routine. I don't want this to, this isn't a bargaining, we're not bargaining at this point. We're trying to give you the guidance within the code, and it's our job. And part of what I get up to look for is to ensure that all these designs, all these buildings, structures, gates and fences or structures are harmonious with the community. And if yours is the only gate on your block, then it's not harmonious with your community. There might be one on the other side, like around the block, but that's not the same thing. And that gate probably wouldn't meet this criteria either. So we're going to have to sort of go back to, to the beginning of this discussion to say, the heights that you have are, that you are permitted to construct as of right, even though you still need to go through this process, you still need ARB approval to do that, would be a 4-foot gate. Now, this is much higher than that. I understand the reasoning why you want to do this. We all have problems with deer in one fashion or another, but we cannot gate our entire community to keep the deer out. It's just, it's not, we'll just end up, it'll completely change the character of this community. So I think that we need to have a different, okay, yes, Eric has a suggestion for me here. He's our assistant planning director, and he and Will Highland, who are the professional planners that are advising the ARB in matters such as these, can clarify some of this for you too. Eric, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to let the ARB and the applicants know that technically under the town code, the ARB is, well, as I see it, not really empowered to approve at the very least the gate due to the height. As member Guittard pointed out, the height of the gate is 7'4". As I know that the ARB knows, a gate or fence in a front yard portion, if it's less or 4 feet in height or less, doesn't even need to come before the ARB. The ARB can approve fences or gates up to 6 feet in height in a front yard portion of a property. If anything is going to be even higher than that, then there are 3 specific criteria that the ARB has to find that are met on the property or with the gate or with the applicant. That is, I guess, getting it out of the way right away. You can approve a fence up to 8 feet in height if it's to enclose an agricultural property, a farm field. Obviously, that's not the case here. The other situation, which also doesn't apply here, the ARB can approve up to 8 feet in height if the gate itself or fence or both are more than 50 feet away from the edge of pavement. That is not the case here. According to the application, it's 23 feet. The other standard, which is a little bit more discretionary, but which the ARB still is required to find that there's a unique case is, and I'll paraphrase, but it's in the town code. You can approve up to 10 feet in height under special circumstances where there's an excessive amount of noise, an excessive amount of light for whatever reason from a neighboring property or a roadway, or significant potential for damage from animals, which is somewhat related to, the deer fence situation. So you would have to find that one of those 3 situations are present here in order to make an exception. In which, and as I see it, the agricultural does not apply. The gate is not 50 feet away. So 2 of the 3 do not apply. The only one that could be for discussion would be whether or not there's a unique situation of noise or light or excessive damage from animals entering the property. If you did find that, then you could approve up to 8 feet in height, but otherwise 6 feet is the maximum that the ARB is empowered to allow. The applicants could apply for a variance in theory from the Zoning Board of Appeals. I would think that the ZBA would defer to the ARB. I haven't seen too many applications like that, but just so you know, basically as the code is written, this board really cannot approve a fence or gate of greater than 6 feet in height in the front yard portion of the property.
What would constitute excessive damage by animals? Is there a definition of what excessive damage by animals would constitute? Because I would think that what we've suffered from the excessive amount of deer will go over a 4-foot fence, they will go over a 6-foot fence.
Yeah.
And
So
they
I'd say
have done excessive damage. So I would like to know what the definition of that is, because that seems to be the only way that we could be considered for a variance is on that basis. So I'd like to know how that is defined.
The ARB doesn't issue variances. We give approvals. The Zoning Board of Appeals issues variances.
Right.
So,
Okay, so then the approval then. I'm just asking
so
what, if
I
somebody
understand
can
the question.
explain
It's
to
just
me what the
important. I want to be
definition would be.
precise. The definition of excessive would be the finding of the board, and they would vote on it, and you could submit evidence showing the extent of the damage from animals, such as like landscapers' bills, like, property damage, photographs. There'd have to be an established record of, the injury that was caused by the deer, to an extent that it's beyond your neighbor's property. And, I just don't.
I'll give you just to clarify, I'll give you the exact wording from the code because I have it here in front of me. It says, or property damage from animals which cannot be abated by the landowner and from which protection is needed. That's the exact wording in the code.
Okay, well, the bottom line is there has to be a body of evidence upon which the ARB would draw its conclusions, which are discretionary. It's discretionary. You would have to make that demonstration. I'm sorry, your dog, I get what's going on with your dog, and that's no fun. And, I'm sorry that you're in this position. You seem like nice folks. It's not, it's an attractive gate. It's just too tall, So I think we'll have to, you'll have to go around this again and see. I think if you'll have to make it shorter for us to be able to approve it. The board might be willing to consider 6 feet from the ground, given your problem with deer. But I think its present height is just too
illegal.
It's not just illegal, but it's incongruous. It can't be
we've
approved.
had hundreds of gate applications in the last 3 years. We have never gone down this road before.
Okay,
So
good to know.
this stands out by itself. It doesn't match what our consistency has been in dealing with other gate applications.
Thank you for adding that, Chip, because you're a veteran board member and I'm new to this. So I'm glad to know that it's been the practice of this board to reject applications of this sort. So I'm sorry for you, because I know this was your COVID project. And as I said, it's attractive enough, but it's too big. So you'll have to.
Can we ask a question?
I would like Frank to.
I just want to say,
first, please.
It's not we're not the code enforcement here, but those are fences on clearly fences on either side. I know you're calling them just netting, but the netting is continuous and it's held up by these poles that are up to almost 7 feet tall. I think it's the next
It's at
page.
6.
6 foot.
6 foot netting.
They're poles. It's 6 foot netting, which is acting as a fence held up by a post. That is a 6 foot fence, and that's not permissible.
Right.
Okay. So the privet will.
Kathy, why don't you poll the board to see what the board thinks, so we can give these folks some advice and move on.
Okay, poll for what? We can't.
What our feelings are.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, just a minute. I'm happy to give you an audience. I'm just trying to get the board in one position on this if I can. Yeah, just
It's
so
sort of
the
an-
applicant is clear, we cannot approve this gate, so something else has to happen. Frank is adding on that the fence is too high. I'd like the applicant to be able to ask her question. Go ahead, Ms. Houghton.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to be able to ask a question. I just want to know, I understand it's not your responsibility, but who is responsible for, like doing a remediation of our neighborhood? And I think that if we're going to be forced to take our gate down, then I think this should be uniformly enforced. If this is the code that you cannot have these fences and you cannot have these gates, then a remediation needs to be done of our neighborhood, because we walk around every day. There are lots of properties that have this. Everyone has the same problem we have. And I don't think it's fair that because somebody decided to complain about our gate, we have to take everything down now.
Right,
And
I
other people haven't received, because they haven't received a complaint, nothing is being done. I think it should
understand.
be.
What is your question, ma'am?
And I just want to know, I understand
What
it's
is your
not you.
question?
I want to understand, who should we reach out to about making sure that this gets uniformly
enforcement.
enforced
You can
across our
talk
neighborhood?
to me. I'm the town prosecutor. I will say that we do our best in code enforcement to uniformly enforce the laws. Like I said, the defense of, well, everybody else is doing it doesn't.
Yeah. It's not an.
I understand, but one other thing I'd like to point out is that what we did improved. Our house is the nicest house on that block. We've put more money into it. We take better care of it, and this gate and our privet has improved the curb appeal of our block.
Okay.
And yet
This is irrelevant.
Ms. Downhan, I'm going to have to stop you there.
There are a lot of
I'm going to
other
have to
things that
stop
should
you
be
there.
enforced before this.
I understand.
So I would like to.
I'd like order. I'd like order. I'd like order. This is too much talking over one another. Ms. Downhan, I understand your frustration. I'm sorry this has occurred, but we are not here to mitigate the fact that you put a fence up that's too big. That's against the rules. We can't approve it. The gate is too big. We can't approve it. If there are people in your neighborhood that have bigger gates, call code enforcement. That is not
So
our
I
job.
have to
Please
police
stop
this as
talking.
a resident.
Please stop talking.
Code enforcement won't police this?
Okay, we're going to move on.
Move on.
I make a motion to deny this application based on the height of the as-built fence.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, your application is denied. Please come back to us with something that's more in keeping with the code. Thank you. Okay, next up is Greer Kudon, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-91-1-19.3, 3 White Pine Road. It's been postponed at the request of the applicant. I really hate to be interrupted, in case that's clear. Okay, so we're on to Robin Clemente, number 6. Mute your self, please. Can you mute your audio? Someone has to mute their audio. Thank you. It interferes with our meeting. We're dragging through this forever. Lordy love us. Would you mute your audio, folks, please? Thank you. Okay, Robin Clemente, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-192-1-33, 34 Westgate Road, Wainscott. Diane, this is yours.
Yes, it is. Hello.
Hello,
Robin, are you there?
I'm here.
He's been patiently waiting.
Yes.
This application has been before us. And they have come back with a new gate, which is, there's an existing gate that was, I believe it was just at 5 feet. That it is 32 feet, I believe, back off the road, so it's not right in your face. They've come back with a picket fence sort of gate that is more in keeping with what we've asked. They've reduced the size of the proposed columns to 8 inches from 1 foot 4 inches. So they've reduced the entire scale of the gate. And the only thing that hasn't been addressed, we asked for a removal of the posts that had the address on them. And they are still there as of yesterday. So I believe that that their new proposed gate. Can we see it? Can we see the drawing? Can everyone? There it is on the left. With 2-inch spacing, so it's a picket fence sort of gate, and I believe that it will sit nicely in the neighborhood. So if no one has any questions, I would approve this application with the understanding that the posts that have the address on them will be removed.
I have a question. In looking at we were reviewing this and just reviewing this plan and not clear about the actual height of the gate. The posts I see are 4 feet 6 inches. The gate panels themselves are 4 feet 2 inches. However, they're 5 inches from grade, according to this. The math doesn't quite work out. So,
the existing
4'2" is only up to the center part of the panel, not the little end pieces I see. Okay.
Yes. Well, if you, in situ, the existing gate. This is slightly smaller than the existing gate, and because I believe they've scaled it back to such a degree, and the way it is placed, I would be tend to approve this gate.
I think it's a very nice gate.
Yeah, I'm curious. What is the solid and what's the void? Is the white the solid and the gray the void?
I think so.
The grade is the solid. I'm sorry, the grade is the spacing.
Okay.
And what I did ask is to go back. I did want to take all of your comments from the first meeting into account, and I worked with the fence company, and I really asked them to please, really scale it back and keep it in line with what we currently have. And so I asked them to change the spacing of the spindles to what we currently have already, and change the design, and then also to really cut back the posts. I know that was a concern. So, and yeah, it is, it's right in line with what we currently have. Oh, and those I'm sorry, those posts, we are removing those. I tried last weekend to remove them myself. It was a bit.
The number post?
Yeah, the number post.
Okay.
It was a bit beyond my my ability. So we have the contractors there working in the backyard, and I have asked them to do that, and so they will remove them.
Okay. I mean, I think the gates I think this is a big improvement. And yeah, it's a big improvement, although it's a little higher than I had hoped. I think we'd asked for 50 feet at the posts and then the gate be 4 foot, because one of the problems we keep running into is measuring from grade, so if there's 5 inches from grade, then there's 4 feet 2 inches. That's actually 55 inches, right? So that's, yeah.
Kathy, I'm seeing on the drawing that the top of the inside of the gate, the top of the gate panel is 4 feet 2 inches above grade, not 4 feet.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're reading it correctly.
Okay.
Correctly.
Okay.
Thank you for correcting.
So the gate itself is
that's
5
not so
inches.
bad. Yes, that's just 2 inches off.
Yeah, so it's
2 inches off what we had
feet.
asked. Yep.
So that's 3 feet 9.
Right.
The gate itself.
I think it's been so reduced and reconsidered in such a way that I think it's appropriate now.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions or comments for the applicant?
Is the fence, it's still white, or is it just natural wood?
No, we're keeping it white as it currently is.
Okay. So Diane, do you want to, Diane's already
Yes,
made.
if there's no other commentary, I would like to make a motion that we approve this application as presented.
With the understanding
with
that
the understanding that the address, the posts that bear the address numbers will be removed.
Great. And was there some question about the call box? Did we determine that too? Wasn't that?
Oh, yes, there was that question.
Oh, there
Is this automatic or is it?
Yeah, it's an automatic. You guys just asked me to mark it. It is 5 feet from the gate itself, and it is hidden within the bushes and the roses
on your property though, right? That's the main thing.
Yes,
Okay, as long as it's on your property.
Yes, actually, I think it's almost too close to the gate, the way it's marked on the survey, because when you pull up in the car. But anyway, I mean, I think it's well within the property.
All right, so can I have a second for Diane's motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'm opposed.
You're opposed? Mooney? Okay. Oops. Yes. Okay. All right. So 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay, Ms. Clemente, you've got your approval.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Good luck. Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right. The next application is David and Ellen Ritchie. Or have they been? They're on, right? This wasn't pulled.
Yeah. Yes. Hello. This is David.
Excellent. Great. Hi, David. Thanks for joining us. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-168-07-37, 73 Montauk Highway. I'm against it. This is Diane's.
Yes. This is an application. Now, I wasn't quite sure. I tried to clarify. It mentions on the application a shed, but I don't think it's part of the application. The application is to approve their gate and fence, which does face Montauk Highway. But it is about 125 feet from Montauk Highway. I have some some pretty good pictures of standing on Montauk Highway where you can, could we see some more pictures? This is an up close. This is the shed in question or not in question. Oh, okay. All right, this is standing on Montauk Highway. This is coming, and then my car is maybe, I don't know, that's about 18 or 20 feet. And then at the end of the driveway on the left is the gate in question, which, as you can see, even in the winter, is barely visible. Now, I have to say that when I went in to inspect this property, that I discovered immediately that it was a home of a very dedicated and meticulous gardener or gardeners. So I'm a little bit prejudiced. The gate is, at its lowest point, it is over 7 feet. The posts are 8'4". But it is, you can't see it. I mean, I don't think it's particularly in season, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. And now you'd have to really look to see this gate. However, and it's been there for quite some time. And the property is very beautiful. And all the snowdrops and hellebores are just blooming, and it really looked good. So, I don't know. I would tend toward approving this, even though it's too high, because it's not discernible.
Can we bring up the survey? Sorry, Diane.
Survey.
Okay.
Oh, the problem is, there is a problem. The problem is that their mesh deer fencing is off the property line. Now that does seem to be a problem that does concern us.
Well, we can't approve a fence that's not on the applicant's property, so that's
right.
That
is problematic.
Yeah.
Which fences? Is it all? I know that some of them.
The fence on the west side of the property.
The fence on the west side was originally put in place by our neighbors.
It's not your fence.
Yeah, we did repair it at one point because it was, sort of decaying, but it was originally put in place by the neighbors.
It looks contiguous to the other fencing that you have, sir. So I think that's why we had reason to believe the way it's depicted on the survey that it's part of one fence. So you have connected to that fence, it looks like, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Obviously, to keep
that
out
makes
the
it
animals.
difficult to discern. Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
And sorry, underneath where it says AutoCAD on the screen, there's that section of fencing there that's outside the property line. Is that also yours?
This little pink one.
Yeah. I think that's the deer fence on the west side. That I think is ours. The wire fence there, because it's the stockade was what they put in originally, and then I think they didn't want the stockade on their driveway when they sold the house, and then I can't even remember, but I think they put some wire fence in, and then we put the deer fence in. So I think there might be sort of a mix of their fence and our fence for that section on the drive, the parking area.
But that I think what we're trying. So whose fence?
The bump
is
out.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bump out to the right of the driveway.
Exactly, that one.
What is that?
I'm sorry, along the driveway?
No,
the right
the
of
one
it.
you see where the shed is by the stone driveway, to the right of the stone driveway, there's a section of wire fencing there that comes out like a little rectangle.
It's like a little pink.
This one. It's very confusing there when you're.
No, it is.
On the site. It's very confusing to see.
I think when they put in the pool, they kind of just ran a fence, there to enclose it. And that was, but we added the deer fence there on top of it. I mean, we could move the fence, that little, section over by the shed. It's not that would be easy to move.
Yeah, I have photographs of the situation there. It's sort of difficult to read, and it's
a little chaotic.
It's chaotic, but it is, it's hard to see, and it's sort of very.
And they put up some stockade fence just along the driveway. It's sort of, some of it's there, some of it's ours. It's a little confusing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that will. Am I reading this survey to understand that this fence is not on your property?
Which one are you referring to? The one along Michael Smith's property?
Yeah, the one along
Below
now
the
or
shed.
formerly of Eva Bartos. Yeah, the one sort of.
That one.
That's basically their fence along on the east side of the driveway is basically their fence.
Right.
And then the jog,
right.
That could be easily fixed, I think.
Well,
Okay,
part of what
I have
I'm getting at
pictures of
is
it.
we can't. Yeah, I understand, but we can't approve a fence that's not on the applicant's property.
Okay.
So if this is depicted the way this is depicted on this survey, it shows that the fence, parts of the fence as contiguously depicted are not on your property. So we can't approve that because it's not your property. So we have to fix that, to my mind.
I mean, I might add that part of the difficulty we're having is not at any fault of the owner, which is that the survey itself it doesn't differentiate quite what is the owner's fence and what is the neighbor's or the surrounding neighbor's fence. So I do feel for the owner of that issue. And
I mean, I feel a little stuck here. I feel the same way. I'm sorry. It's just as a matter of record. The fence isn't, big portions of the fence or some portions of the fence are not on your land. So I don't see how we can approve it. I mean, as depicted, maybe they should be, and maybe there are adjustments that can be made. And I am sympathetic to your position. But as you know,
but is it really just the jog by the shed which is problematic, or is it what else needs to be addressed? I guess is.
Well, I think you have to decide if that piece of fencing that's on the neighbor's lot on the west side is yours or theirs.
Yeah,
And that has to be
no,
identified.
the stockade was originally put up by them. And then, I mean, do you need
No, we're
something?
talking about the wire fence, not the stockade.
Okay, not the stockade. So the section of wire fence, along the west boundary.
Right.
Okay.
I think the survey just should differentiate, perhaps, in color, what is considered your fence and what is considered your neighbor's fence. There's nothing wrong with having, obviously, using your neighbor's fence as your fence, and just to point this out to the members, below the shed on the west side is a wire fence. Above it is a stockade. So there are two types of fences there. So it would help to have some clarification from the surveyor on that.
Just on the type of fence, because I don't know that he's not going to be able to distinguish.
It's called out on that, but I guess Kathy can reiterate this, but we can't approve a fence that's not properly within the property itself as per the survey. But if it's not your fence, then that's not part of our review. That's part of the neighbor's review.
Can I just chime in quickly?
Yes, please.
I think maybe the best way to put it is you can approve the portions of fence that are on the applicant's property, but you cannot approve the portions that are not on his property. So regardless of who paid for the fence or built it, any portion of fence that's not on the applicant's property is not, it's not something that the ARB can, has any purview to approve or deny right now. You can't, under the code, you can allow up to 8 feet in height. Since this is not a property fronting on the street, it's about 300 feet away from the road. So you can approve the 8-foot height, but that's only the sections of fence that are on this applicant's property. So there's sort of two ways, just to give the applicant some something to consider. If your neighbor wanted to remove any portion of that fencing that's solely on their property in the future, they could just go ahead and do it. And to replace it would require coming back before this board and getting an approval to replace the fence either on their property or on your property. So,
got it.
The ARB can look at this sort of from two angles. You can approve the portions of fencing that the applicant is requesting approval for right now that are on his property and forget about the rest. But, to you, Mr. Ritchie, it may be in your best interest just to resolve the problem right now and, move portions of fencing onto your property and seek the approval. But that's sort of where you're at right now. Again, I guess just to summarize, the portions that are on his property can approve. Everything else, this board cannot approve. So it's sort of, left to whatever those neighbors want to do as far as applying to the ARB.
Yeah, that's the point I've been making, that any fencing, any structures that are not on your property that we have the power to approve, we can't do it. We can only do the stuff that, and I understand, that my neighbor has a fence along my property line too, and I benefit from that in the ways that, this has benefited from you. It's not a matter of whether it should or shouldn't be, or that you people can certainly share it. But the way it's depicted on the survey right now and what you're asking for approval for includes what looks to be fencing that's not on your land. So we don't have any jurisdiction over that, because that's not, anything
and that's
not
kind
on
of
your land isn't part of your application.
Part of this process is sort of understanding, what we need to do here.
Right. So I think that, defining which of these fences are actually yours, and then, then we can take it from there. I think generally speaking, I would prefer that the fences weren't so tall. I understand that there's, it's been there a long time and it's not, there's no public view shed that's affected and so on. But I feel a sense of obligation to be a little more consistent in where we're putting allowing people to have 8 fences and big gates and so on. But I think at this point, I'm not ready to really disengage all these pieces. I mean, if everybody else is, tell me, but I think that this feels too ill-defined right now for me to move forward on it.
I would also just add about the height of fences, that even if it's not visible from the street, and even if the existing neighbor is fine with it, a new tenant, a new owner could come in from an adjacent property, and if something doesn't comply with town regulations, it is in a way, it's one could consider that a hardship on them as adjacent lots.
Yeah, that's true. So we should get, I'm sorry, Mr. Rich, you seem like a nice man. And I know that Diane is very compelled, and I take she's the gardener extraordinaire. So if, she speaks well of your application, but I just feel that as a matter of record, in terms of our record keeping, we can't really proceed with this survey to deal with your fence issues until we know which part of the fence is yours and which is
so maybe that's the next step. I mean, just so I can better understand is to maybe correct the one section of fence along the south edge, which sort of jogs in, because that is kind of glaring.
Right.
And it is a little bit nebulous, unfortunately, on the west boundary.
Right.
Because originally there was stockade, I think, all the way to the corner, and then they removed it and did replace it with some wire fence. But then, I think we put in some additional fence to keep the deer out. And so there's sort of 2 pieces of fence on that one section there.
Right.
Would it work to come back for, like, if we corrected, what I'm just trying to think of as a plan is to correct, the fence where it sort of goes off the grid there, and just not request approval for the fence along the neighbor's property to the west, since it's a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think if what you run into here, that would definitely grease the skids for us. That would help it for us. That would make the next steps much easier. But I think at some point you're going to have to deal with whether that fence is on your land or your neighbor's land.
Understood. And maybe it has to be.
That is not something we're here to give you advice on. But
we'd have to come back. And
exactly.
Obviously, this a lot of this goes back quite some time. Some of it is 20, 25 years in the making.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been there.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a bit of a hodgepodge, and I can't even, necessarily remember all the details.
No, I understand, and that's not that important. But what we need depicted on the survey is what you need approval for. So,
but the surveyor, I would have to provide a schedule, since I don't think that the surveyor isn't saying, oh, this is his fence or your fence. He's just saying there's a fence there.
Right, but he's depicting the fence off your property. So that's the part, the parts that are off your property are parts that we can't approve. So those are the ones.
Okay, so
that's pretty much, that's your rule of thumb. Whatever is not on your property line should be removed from your application, I guess.
Let me add a couple of things. I think you could request to the surveyor that any fences not on your property not be included on the survey for clarification.
Okay.
That's part of the problem.
That's a good idea.
I also just, as a homeowner, I just want to let you know that just sort of as a favor to you, that we're asking you, you have suggested, pulling that fence back towards the shed. You're going to have to get a surveyor to come back out and inspect that and then redraw the survey.
Understood.
And we've made some. All I'm going to say is that we've made some members of the board have made some, expressed some concern about the height of that fence. So just bear in mind that where we are.
Even though it's the deer fence is problematic, right? Because that's the section by the shed is deer fence. It's wire deer fence. Is that what's problematic? I'm still
The height of the fence.
The height of it, yeah.
That's the issue. So you may be putting some money into making it correcting something that we can't guarantee is going to be approved.
Okay, the stockade fence that's facing Montauk Highway is 6 feet. Some of this fencing around the property, it varies between 6 feet and almost 7 feet, I think, someplace. Occasionally there's an 8-foot pole, but there's no fence on it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the issue here is the gate, which is almost 8 feet tall. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the main issue.
It was, the application was for a gate.
Okay. So did we give the applicant enough feedback about the gate? What do people feel about this gate? I mean, Diane seems good with it. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. I think it's a little too big.
We've never had a standard where if you can't see the gate, we let it ride. That's never been our standard at all.
We have. Okay. We have.
Oh, we have.
Well, I can't remember many, Diane. I mean, we would give it 5 or 6 feet. We would give it 5 or 6 feet, but I think it needs to be brought into compliance at 6 feet.
To me, it doesn't meet the threshold of the three
criteria.
Criteria discussed on a previous application in this meeting for hardship, however you call that.
Well,
to me, it doesn't meet the criteria.
Well, the second criteria was 50 feet off the roadway.
Actually, that's
300 feet off
one
the
of them. Yeah, that there. The other thing that's on this application is legalizing a shed. Should we have?
That's not within the ARB's jurisdiction.
Right, but wouldn't the architectural features of the shed be within our jurisdiction?
No, not unless
we
it's
don't
like
get to
overlay.
weigh in on what it looks like.
No, unfortunately.
It's a real gardener shed. It's very discreet.
Yeah, okay.
So one of the reasons, so then this does meet then one of the criteria for an exception to go up to 8 feet, that we are far enough from a public street.
I think the other point that maybe I thought I saw somewhere that if it's in the back of the property, right, since we're a flag lot, it's a rear yard. I thought that and I don't recall, I thought there was some difference if it's, not a street facing situation versus being in the back, but that's, just a recollection.
Yeah. Well,
there's various regulations. I won't go into the minutia of them again, but you're allowed 6 feet as a matter of right, in which case you wouldn't even need to come before this board in a rear or side yard. But if you're going over 6 feet, the ARB can allow up to 8 feet.
Okay.
And again, one of those standards is if you're more than 50 feet from the edge of pavement of a public street, which you're about 300.
So to me, I'm comfortable approving an 8-foot gate there because to me that meets that threshold of exceeding 50 feet from a public street.
Okay, anybody else on that? Because that's really what the application is for, although this fence needs approval too. But anyway,
could we take a look at the gate again? I just, we've had so much discussion about the fencing.
Yeah, it's in the,
just very quickly.
Okay, that mesh thing you just saw is this little funny triangular jog.
Okay.
This is where the various fences and this is from.
Looks like a soccer goal.
Inside looking out, yeah.
Okay.
Is that the gate to the left in the corner?
Yes, that's the gate.
It's to the left, yeah.
But that's very up on top of the gate. And then I have various pictures from various distances on the driveway. That's the gardener shed.
Right.
Well, can we see the whole gate, or
There,
we just have a little clip?
This is standing on Montauk Highway.
Right.
It is it's at the end of the driveway to the left.
Right. So
right.
You can't see.
And you have a picture, a partial picture of the gate, it looks like, but not the whole gate.
I think the application was submitted with a picture of the gate.
Yeah, there's some pictures in.
Yeah, okay, but and then there's another picture.
Those pictures.
Okay, this is Montauk Highway. This is, okay, closer into the gate. Now, if you look really closely, you can see way at the end of that long driveway, the gate, which is perfectly natural and it blends in with. In there, you know, it has age and it has gravitas.
That was submitted with the application, because I have a copy of it here.
Yes, that's true.
That's what Chip is asking to see. And
I mean, this is painful to see this gate. I mean,
it's very, well, you know, it's also,
that's off the side of the
application.
property.
Here we go. Oh, that's not it?
I think that was probably.
There is.
No, there's a gate.
There is a picture.
There.
That's,
There we go.
There
That's it.
And then there's a close-up of it too, that, but it's a pretty.
so it's 7 feet at the post and it's lower in the middle.
No, its lowest point, it's 7 feet 4 inches from grade at its lowest point.
And its highest point?
At its highest point, it's, well, the posts are 8 feet 4.
Oh, my.
So it's 8 feet 4.
It's too high by our regular standards. It's definitely too high.
But I don't think we
It
can
doesn't feel
approve.
high. I don't know what to say.
What did you say, Esperanza?
As I don't believe we can approve over 8 feet.
Yeah, that doesn't, yeah.
Well, the posts are 8 feet 4. So maybe
they
that
could
top,
remove those caps or something and bring it down to 8 feet, which, I mean, is the furthest edge, excuse me, of the gate where it comes out. Would that be 8 feet? I mean, I think we could live with 8 feet there, but.
I think that's about right. I mean, I measured it. I made some notes.
Okay. And then, but then if you do something to remove the cap, I mean, it's not architecturally pleasant, but that's where the height is really breached. That the height regulation is breached there mostly by the pillar or post, from pillar to post. So maybe you could make an adjustment on that. Now that stockade fencing is, as we look to the right and left of the gate, that's 8 feet exactly, or is that a little over?
that's 8 feet.
Okay. And that's just 8 feet in where we can see it as it runs up the driveway there on the right of this photo. Okay.
Yeah, so we don't see much 8-foot stockade fencing. It's a special order. We see 6-foot stockade fencing. So the scale of this is really quite huge, even though you might look at it and say it looks like a 6-foot stockade fence. It's not.
Right.
No, well, this one in front of the tree is a 6-foot stockade fence.
Right. Well, you can
but it jumps up.
That's where you get the sense of the scale. Yeah.
To me, anytime we exceed 6 foot of a fence, I would not want to see a stockade fence. I would want to essentially permit someone to have if you're going to exceed them, a wire deer fence.
It has to be, it has to be
So anything above 6 feet, I would not want to see a stockade fence. I would want to see something, if not completely like open and mesh, like a true deer fence, something close to it. And that includes the gate.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up.
Yeah, we need more air in there. So we need to. So the gate, are we proposing that the gate is acceptable, but we need to have the posts lowered, shortened, and that the 8-foot fencing, the 8-foot stockade fencing be replaced with something more transparent? Is that the recommendation?
We can't design it. We can't tell him to do that. I mean,
we can't.
He has to design it. We can't design this fencing and gates.
But it could be. We could replace it with a 6-foot.
Excuse me.
You could replace it with a 6-foot stockade. I mean,
then why have an 8-foot fence or gate? Why have an 8-foot gate if you have a 6-foot?
Well, it's just to keep the deer out. I mean, that's honestly the only reason, right? Just because they can jump over anything.
Yeah, they could jump over 8 feet also. So
yeah, no, I've seen them do it, but they stay out with this, right? I mean, is our experience is.
Okay, well,
And
we have
they-
to, we have to decide, what are we going to tell this applicant? I need people to kind of round this up and give him some direction so we can move on, because
I think this is very fortified, and it should be a little more translucent and open as you were going in that direction, I think.
Yeah.
It looks like you're driving into Fort Knox. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I cannot go with this gate. It's just too high, and the fencing is too high.
There's a backboard on this gate that goes right across. I think if you took this gate down to
7 feet.
If you eliminated, if you just took it right across, took the stockade down, took the gate down, see where the support board is? I mean, it seems to me that would eliminate like a foot.
Yeah.
At the high end. And I think because of the position.
We'll see you again, Mr. Ritchie. Maybe you can come back with the survey that's more clearly depicts the, the issues with the fence, and then give us a draft of a smaller, a design of a smaller gate, or some, as Diane is saying, just cut it down tastefully.
I think if you cut it on that top board, it would.
Yeah, I think she's a little straight about that. And I think would the board generally favor that solution? Would people be agreeable to that solution?
Yes.
I think also I might suggest that the owner just come back with a drawing of the elevation of the gate as proposed.
Okay.
It might even just,
That'd
you
be
could
better.
even Photoshop it and say, cutting off the top.
Perfect.
Come back with a drawing for us to approve, and revise the survey and come back with proposed fencing.
Right. Okay, is that good, Mr. Ritchie? We'll send you a
I
follow-up
think so.
letter. We'll send you a follow-up letter that has more details on this. That'll it'll be a better checklist for you, an easier checklist for you to review with your surveyor and anyone else that's helping.
Yeah, no, and I mean, this has been helpful. I mean, we're just trying to find a way to make it work. So.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy your evening, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, agricultural overlay. We're having a long meeting today. 8 Sayers Path LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-196-01-8.1. Do we have Jamison McWilliams? I see her. Jamison, are you with us? Okay, I'm assuming there she
I
is.
think Jessica is. Yeah.
And
I thought you were going to call me last, but that's okay.
Would you prefer to be last?
No.
I thought we'd just leave you in okay. All right, we just thought we'd leave you right in here. Okay, great. So
Jessica's should be on, but she's going to.
That's all right. Esperanza. This is Esperanza's. I just want to make sure someone on your team is here to listen to what Esperanza has to say. Okay, Esperanza, it's your show here, kiddo.
Thank you. So this is, I'm not sure if it's, this is an application for a property at 8 Stairs Path. This has been through various transformations and comments from this board regarding the mass and scale and design of this proposed residence and a pool house that lies within an agricultural overlay district. It is at the corner of Sayers Path and Montauk Highway. And the proposed new application proposed 2-story new construction residence and 1-story pool house now comes in as the main residence at 7,272 square feet, and the pool house, that's a 2-story residence, and the pool house, which is 1-story at 1,000 square feet. And the property size is 1.7 acres, just to give you a sense of the proportion. So I believe this is the same architect, Mr. Gentile, who was with us the last time. Is that correct? He's also here, I see.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think might just as well, I found that the new, you can take us through a little bit also, but I found that the new revised design is a little softer. The materials and such were never really something that this board had held in question. But I find that the design even the layout of this seems a bit more in keeping with the neighborhood. I'd like to ask Frank, actually, before you, actually, no, you go ahead and if you have any comments, and then I would like Frank, actually, our architect on the board, to make some comments as well, because I value what he would have to say, and he's our newest member, and you've heard from past architects, so this would be a new perspective.
Can I first suggest or recommend that we bring up the rendering file?
Yes,
That's
please.
Probably the best way to understand what we're likely to talk about here. So there's a PDF that it's about 8 pages that has renderings in it. So I just want to make sure that we introduce that for record. And
yeah, and we also should probably take a look again at the survey at some point.
Right. So this is, and if Esperanza, let me know if you would like to do this, but I'm happy to say
please,
this is the elevation with facing the a field beyond. This is the field is visible from Montauk Highway. It's a part of the agricultural reserve. It's very open space. Next page. That is the entrance on the opposite elevation. Next page. That is the pool house as seen from the main house, looking beyond to that open reserve or farm. Next page. Okay, this is starting to explain it. I think we understand. So you can see that reserve beyond. Next page. Looking back. Next page. If you all can see through your Zoom, the property on the right, and in the foreground, that open space. Next page, we can just keep going through these. Yeah. So we can, let's go back to page, or maybe at this point, I think maybe perhaps the applicant or representative should speak.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind keeping that previous, go back to, Will, please. That one.
No, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I like to see this.
Agreed.
Side by side.
Okay.
Is that my cue?
Okay, yes, Jameson.
Okay. Hi,
Welcome.
I'm Jameson. Thank you, Jameson McWilliams. I know some of you from Crouch McWilliams Law Group, representing the applicant, who is 8 Sayers Path LLC. I know that for many of you, probably half of you, this has been a long road to get here, or repetitive road perhaps. And then I know Frank and the new chair, that this is a relatively new application. It's new for me. This is my first time representing it. You've done, these are our renderings. You've done a good job introducing it so far. This is, the address is 8 Sayers, and it is 1.7 acres. And what we tried to do, I have a whole, I have background, I have the subdivision, I have the neighborhood, I have all of it, but I think I can just say this, that, and then you can let me know how deep you want me to go, that we did after the last meeting, took into consideration what the board suggested, which was primarily, I know it was a little loose with the terminology, but one of them was like, take a look at the sides, the edges, which means obviously, in my opinion, that was the boundary lines on the lot lines, and the setbacks of the house that was discussed, the setbacks from the shared driveway and the setbacks from the recreational reserve area. So we took that into account and increased those setbacks, moved further away from those lines. And then one major change as well was turning the orientation of the garage. So to move further away from the boundary of the rec reserve also, to try and minimize what was described as sort of like a very wide footprint. It's a large lot, but it is kind of, it's more narrow than it is long. So we tried to incorporate that most recent feedback with the additional feedback, which had been incorporated from prior meetings of the design and, the materials. And as Esperanza noted, we didn't think that there was any issue necessarily with any of the materials, so we kept those the same. And I don't know how I'll let the board, conversation direct me where you want me to go next.
This has been before us for forever, and it's amazing to me what a great result this is. We started with sort of a corporate headquarters looking building, and now it's a traditional shingled Hampton's house that seems much more sensitive to the site. I want to congratulate Jameson and the applicant for having really listened and turned this around dramatically.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's a positive piece. Does anybody else have any other comments? Esperanza, would you like to lead any further discussion? I think there are some other elements of the, I have, less experience with this application. So I don't remember what it was like to begin with. It looks nice enough. It still seems kind of big to me, but.
Yeah, I think I wanted, sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay. Go for it. Go for it.
No, I wanted to stay on this particular aerial, and I know these are renderings. I understand that they can't be utterly accurate. I think there's a lot of forest depicted here where, like, just to the left of this is Montauk Highway. It's not that extent, it's not that large a buffer, I don't think. But this is something that I'm looking at because this house that's just to the right, which is the neighboring house, and these are about, I would say, 1 acre lots. If I'm not mistaken, the average size home along Sayers Path in particular is, anywhere between 3 and maybe, 3 and 5 at most. But this one in particular, I think, is around 3, possibly 4. And I'm looking at this and thinking that the proposed house here looks small in comparison to it, and actually that the pool house looks really gigantic in comparison to the scale of the main residence. So there's sort of a disjointed presentation to me here of proportion. I do feel that it's, again, I appreciate the reorientation of the garage. I think that made a large difference into how you view this property as you enter it. And it's not as imposing as it originally was proposed, but I do still find that the scale, the way it sits on the property, and given the open sort of openness of the land, especially behind it, between the house and the pool house, it just all seems to be crammed into this narrow in width lot.
If I could add a couple of comments. So in general, to me, it seems that one of the goals or principles of good planning in an agricultural overlay is spatial continuity between a property and the land beyond it. And that includes the surrounding houses. And I would emphasize the accessory structures and the placement of those accessory structures relative to the principal structure. The siting of the structures should embrace the landscape beyond. That's sort of a principle of good planning if you're trying to achieve an open feeling. And the key word I think here is that we want to achieve is openness in an agricultural reserve. To me, the orientation and the scale of the pool house is working against that. Its current location and scale between the house and the open property, I'm going to call it, beyond it, really to me, blocks and shields the house from that. It's a bit jarring, and it doesn't adhere to that principle of spatial continuity between the open space and the main house. I realize that the design of the pool house is, between the solid roofs is semi-transparent, but to me, that like the whole space reads as actually a large volume. That, to Esperanza's point about scale, it's a pool house it is an accessory to the principal structure. That is why there are limitations on sizes of pool houses. The intent is to keep them at a scale that is accessory to the principal structure and doesn't approach a second principal structure on the property. So that is my comment about the orientation of the pool house, the scale, the roof height. I think that some things could be done with the siding of the pool house and its scale to make this more amenable to me, to be in line with the intent of building within an agricultural reserve. I understand also in terms of the scale of the house, I understand that, but I wanted to bring up that about the pool house.
I just want to clarify that this isn't an ag overlay district. The ag reserve is right behind it, but this lot is the ag overlay.
Thanks for that clarification, David. It's a different designation, that the ag overlay and the agricultural easement. Agricultural. David, you said it. I've just lost the word.
The agricultural reserve. The
reserve. Thank you. Okay. I would just like to add, at least, I think that, in terms of the materials and the general design of the house, I think it's fine. It just seems a little too large to me. One of the things that concerns me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that I think what adds to the, basic appropriateness, I guess, of the building in its current setting, and I agree with Frank's comments about the pool house, is that it's tucked into what seems to be a wooded area, and it seems nestled in there. But if I'm wrong about this, please correct me, but I think that wooded area is part of the agricultural reserve and can be cleared, right? Ag overlay can be cleared, right?
It's all cleared, Kathy. It's a gigantic clearing. There's no vegetation on this lot that we see at all.
No, I understand, but I'm talking about the trees that are surrounding it. Is that
yes, that's accurate? I think, David, in that to the left of this.
I understand that the lot itself is cleared. I'm talking about the surrounding. What's pictured here with these trees. I'm trying to imagine it without the trees. If that's.
There is a scenic easement that covers, I don't know exactly where it is on this because I don't have the survey in front of me that shows it, but that would require that the property be maintained in its natural state. So some of the trees within that easement would have to remain, assuming that's the natural condition, but the trees located outside of that scenic easement, there's no requirement that any of the trees or vegetation you can clear that as much of that as you want to, because it is an ag overlay district, which is exempt from the clearing restrictions in the town code.
Right. May I clarify further? Because I studied this map specifically. Sure. So, and if we have any, are there any other?
I had one other question.
Is there a planner here that could maybe pull this up on GIS? That might be.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if you could pull that up so we could see where the scenic easements are located and where the rec reserve and all of that. I think that would be really helpful.
So while they're pulling that up, I'll give you now my background information becomes relevant. So 8 Sayers, which is lot 1, which is the subject lot, is one of the 10 lots that were created in the subdivision 1983 of the map of Wayne Scott Farms. So there are 10 lots in the subdivision. This is the largest lot in the subdivision, the numbered and named lot, which are the only lots that have the ability to improve with a residence. Additionally, at the time that the map was filed, there are 3 reserve areas. The largest of the reserve is what I would say the centerpiece of the map is the 14.2 acre ag reserve area, which is currently the Kilmore Horse Farm. That is an ag reserve, so that has its own specific limitations in terms of its use, which is horse use is, agricultural. Additionally, there is the recreational reserve area. That's the 2.3 acre lot adjacent to lot 1, closer to the highway. It's actually also owned by my client. That lot has been raised in some of the discussions, but this application is just for the residential lot. The recreational reserve area, which is like this triangular piece, which we could see on a tax map, has its own tax map lot, has a 50-foot scenic easement along the western property line. Then there are additional covenants and restrictions, limitations on what could be developed in that area. There can never be a residence. What it says, and this is, the language is a little vague, but what it says is it's for recreational use, and any development of anything, improvements proposed on that lot would have to be a town code approved improvement, and it would have to go through full site plan review. So Eric, would know more probably than any of us in terms of how we would even get to the point of, and what that would all be. But this application doesn't involve any proposed, not clearing a single tree. We're not proposing anything there, although we do own it. Additionally, there is another lot. The third reserve is a single and separate tax map lot that is 1.7 acres. And that is actually the lot that lines Montauk Highway. We do not own it. It's a different owner. I don't know, it's irrelevant. They call that that's a 100-foot buffer because it's 100 feet wide and it's very long. It spans, the entire length of our rec reserve area. And that is burdened 100% by the scenic easement, the same language that the rec reserve is burdened by the 50-foot easement on the west side. Additionally, I'll note that our lot 1, every lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are burdened by additional 50-foot easements on the Sayers Path side. And then lots 8, 9, and 10 are burdened by 100-foot easements on the Wainscott Hollow Road side. And then actually lots 6, 7, and 10 are burdened by a 10-foot scenic easement on the south side. And while we're calling these scenic easements, and I know that there was this word of openness and potential view sheds, I would take exception to the first comment about this horse farm is visible from Montauk Highway. There actually is significant screening. Like even if you go on Google Earth and look at Street View and you try and see it, you can see the horse farm when you are actually, like when town line sort of becomes Wainscott Hollow and you're looking down into their driveway. But beyond that, the language in the scenic easements that burden every single one of these lots and creates this circle around them all says that that it has to be maintained in its natural vegetation, maintain their present appearance, and shall remain in their natural state. So, I would say actually that it may be open space, and preservation of open space is not the same as openness and view shed. So I think we need to distinguish those two.
Well, if I could just interrupt you though.
Yeah.
That was when these covenants were created, and we don't know how that growth has grown over the past 40 years.
I'm happy you brought that up.
Because 11 and 15 Wainscott Hollow Road, which have those scenic easements, are completely open.
Well,
that
means, in my opinion, they haven't been caught yet, because I found when I was looking at this, so lot 4, which is 24 Sayers, just recently had to go through a whole re-veg plan because they inappropriately, I guess, and illegally cleared the scenic easement and had to replant natural vegetation there. So, I mean,
Okay, well,
and that was in 2020. So,
Right.
I think, I mean, David can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen an interpretation of an easement that like it's only at the time it's written and that you can like, you know, cut down the trees and manicure them to be maintained at the time that it's drafted. Otherwise, you know, we're not touching you. If you can't disturb it, if we can't currently disturb the 50 feet from our proposed front yard to Sayers, then we can't disturb it. You can't cut it down. You
right.
can't.
I take the point. David, does that jive with your understanding of this?
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say that there's other agricultural overlay or properties that are, I guess, on the not in the. It would help to have the GIS in front of me. You can say
Okay.
Yeah, were we able to?
This is open to you can
Will
see
or
this
Eric,
property
can
from
you get
Town
that
Line
to
Road
that?
and from I think various other from Sayers Path, from Montauk Highway, and
I would take exception to that. You can see Kilmore Farms from Sayers Path in front of which lots? I don't think you can.
when you're driving down, you go down on Sunday, and I looked through the woods. I could see into it because there's no vegetation on the trees now.
I know that. So the deciduous trees.
Well, I think that's relevant to the discussion to a certain degree, and it's okay. Well, let's proceed with the David, unless you have more to say on this.
I just had one other question. It's slightly unrelated, but the exterior, I guess, elevations or renderings kind of show a what appears to be a 3-car garage. There's 3 doors. Then the floor plans show a 2-car garage.
And don't the covenants and I read something today among these papers that says it can't be bigger than a 2-car garage. Is that, am I imagining that, or wasn't that in something that I read today?
Yes.
In the Declaration of Restrictions.
Thank you.
Where there's some, it gives us some guidance also in how we review this property.
Right. Because I seem to remember reading something about it too, and I thought it was quaint that they called them pleasure cars.
Yes.
Or 2 pleasure cars, as opposed to the other cars we drive.
Can I just make a comment? Can I be heard or no? Are you guys here? This is Jessica Guetta. I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking at the floor plans and there is a 3-car garage here.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, well, that's helpful. So that needs
it's drawing A6A.
Well, it seems like that'll have to be reduced to 2 cars at least, right?
Well, I think this gives us the guidance also with that Declaration of Restrictions of when these covenants were originally drafted, that we're reviewing this as something that was of a more modest scale. Obviously, I think it also says that livable floor space of no less than 1,850 square feet. Okay, that's, you're not going to build a tiny shed,
right.
But, it's not going to be a 15,000 square foot home.
I do have, you're raising certain neighboring lots as examples. I have every building card. So, I mean, if we want to do it, we can do it and go through each one.
I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I think at this point, we're just trying to, there are 2 new members of this board. I understand it takes some patience on everybody's part to bring us up to speed on what's been happening here. Chip and Diane and Esperanza have had the benefit of the long view and can see the improvements that have been made to this design. But I feel that it's still large for the, for in terms of the harmony of the, blending in with the neighborhood and with specific respect to the criteria or the feeling I got from reading the covenants and restrictions or whatever the terms are for that.
Document.
Thank you. Document what it is, because right off the bat, there's a 2-car, it's limited to a 2-car garage, and that's something that has to be remedied. So my feeling is that this is a lovely design. The materials are nice, but if it could still be smaller, I think that would be great.
Can I ask you, I don't want to like pin down the board in this way, so don't take this the wrong way, but we've been, obviously the neighborhood is something that we're looking at, because that's the continuity. It has to be of something, and the scale of something. So I just want to understand what neighborhood, we're talking about here, because obviously, the first thing it was described is if you drive up and down Sayers, but if you drive up and down Sayers, there's only 3 houses in this map where those covenants and restrictions apply, besides our lot that you can see from Sayers. There's a lot more. There are many more houses on Sayers than just this. The next house down Sayers 40, when you're driving down, you have 8, and then you have, the next 3. 40 comes next, and
It's a very large house.
9-bedroom, 13 bath, right? 14,000 square foot.
It's also a larger piece of property, and it's a different sort of design that doesn't sit as squarely on the property. And my reference is more the direct neighbors, even where you have number 14 and number 18 that share that driveway, and this structure is going to be looming, and then the proposed landscaping is then to put like 30-foot, or I presume 30-foot evergreens to create a whole wall. So it's going to be like a corridor, 8 Sayers Path, a corridor with a
Well, let me push back on that. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, not to cut you off, Jameson. It's Eric Shantz again. I'm sorry, we're having trouble with the town's GIS system. I think they're running updates, but I do have an aerial photograph I can screen share with you if you feel that would be helpful for the conversation.
I think that would be helpful.
Sure. I might, and then while you're pulling that up, I just want to push back then for a second. If 40 Sayers gets the benefit of the fact that it's a quote larger lot and therefore can have a larger house, then that's the argument we're trying to make, in that we have a larger lot than the 2 neighboring direct neighbors. It's almost twice the size. So, that cuts both ways.
Okay, where are we?
So it's the lot in the middle, right? Along the highway, yeah.
So the lot along the highway, this is going to is the easement that we do not own. Right. Then the lot where it says it's searching is actually, it's shown as now it's a single lot, but it's not. These are the 2 lots. What's wooded now, this is the current, this is more or less, nothing has been disturbed since this aerial. This neighborhood has changed, which is, I was going to raise across the farm field, which must have come in front of this board in April, I saw, 11 Town Line Road. Similar size lot. Nice big house was just approved, similarly situated on the lot, wide on the lot. It's being built right now. But the house that we were all just discussing is 40. It's, if you zoom in a little more, you'll see there's a tennis court on it. There's a lot of coverage there, and I have the whole, I have the building card. But that's, to me, what is relevant here. Like, we can't pick and choose the neighborhood. We can't pick the small houses and say it's in the neighborhood of the small houses and not look at some of the other large houses.
I understand your point. I take your point. But are those houses that we're using in comparison, are they in agricultural overlay districts?
This might be something that, I don't know if this is a screenshot that he can't do, Eric. But I have the sheet. The ag overlay district is also, I think, very telling in this neighborhood. Mostly all of these larger lots, and I say larger because you do see that like swath of these smaller lots on the east side of Sayers. Those are like, they go from 0.97 down to 0.44, 0.46, 0.45. They're smaller. Those are 1/4 of the size of our lot. But the rest, those are the small lots. Those are A and B zoning. This is A2. And those are not in the ag overlay, and the rest are. So my position there would be those are looked at as not in this neighborhood for a lot of reasons under zoning, under, the town board could, change that fact, but they don't. Our lot is looked at differently. And we know, no matter how far out you want to expand this south, Sayers to Waynescott Main Street, all of this that's in the Ag Reserve, there are a lot of larger houses in the neighborhood. I mean, that's just a fact.
So it is if we just we zoomed out, but zooming back in, where is the property line? What is the property boundaries of this?
I don't think it's depicted.
It's not
depicted.
David, you want to take that or
show some merged lots? This is the one where there's a question on the lot merger.
I can explain this pretty
go for it.
Carefully. These two lots were bought in common ownership under a single deed. Therefore, it was right now the county has remapped it as a single lot. The town is looking into whether that was inappropriately mapped, and therefore it's showing as one lot, but we're still proposing our improvements in the house on just lot one while that merger thing is getting worked out anyway, because regardless of whether this actually remains merged like this, all of those CNRs and the restrictions of rec will be by the meets and bounds of that original lot. So nothing we're proposing shows that. It's too bad that right now you can't see the line. I think there should be something in the documents that shows both lines.
The submission,
but
survey that shows it, but yeah, that's part of the reason we even put this on tonight's agenda, is because the application that we're looking at is only for 8 Sayers, and it does not include 4 Sayers while this merger complication is being worked out.
Excuse me.
Hey, Will, if you could put up the survey again, that'll probably help show the property boundaries.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you could clearly see on the survey and the site plan where the boundaries are.
Yeah, I mentioned that myself. Okay, well,
yes.
So the blue lines are exactly the boundary lots, and we are only
you see the shape of it there, Frank. You can see the lot appears in the aerial. Yeah.
So we're on the.
Yeah, and so if you think, from that northern line, then there's another 100 feet of someone else's property until you get to then wherever the road bed lies is somewhere beyond that. That was actually a point that was raised in the last meeting too, not really understanding distance, how far this subject lot is from Montauk Highway.
That second lot reserve is actually 2.2 acres from the road.
0.2 acres from the road.
2.2.
2.2 acres.
Yeah, the total size of the rec reserve is 2.2, and then there's an additional 1.7 lot that buffers the highway.
Right, I understand. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions for the applicant? I think we should get to the board's,
So I just want to just point Jameson directly to what I was talking about in the Declaration of Restrictions. So it's page 2.
Now, which one? Because actually, remember you and I discussed briefly, there were 2 declarations filed. One from 84 and one from 86.
One with pleasure vehicles, one with just vehicles.
Well, and actually one is more restrictive of the rec reserve, which is why, we need to be very careful in understanding all of that.
I'm looking at December 8th, 1987.
Hold on one second. Or you go ahead. I trust you.
And I think it's the same paragraph in both of them. So it's not, so paragraph 3, where it says garage, no structure shall be used or erected or altered on part of the premises except for a single family dwelling, garage for 1 or 2 vehicles, so on and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I mean, we'll take that into consideration. Obviously, I see it.
So you're going to have to come back with new plans for the 2-car garage, correct?
Yeah.
So we can't deal with anything tonight. We have to resubmit it.
I think that's a consideration. I also think that Frank and my comments about the pool house structure might be taken into consideration. Just
Esperanza, can I make one comment? Can you guys open the cabana from a front view? If you notice, the entire structure is basically an open view with just a shaded area. When you're looking at it from a roof standpoint, it looks to you like it's a large volume, but it's actually just this beautiful open shaded structure where you could see, I'm very particular about sun. So it's just a very open, wide cabana to be able to see the entire farm, but it's all open.
It is 1,000 square feet, right?
No,
that's what is on the application.
Oh yeah. It's
misleading.
But so that's allowable in the town, 1,000 square feet. It's one changing area and a bathroom, but it's all the way off to the left side of the property. And could we just bring up the rendering so I could show you a little bit what it looks like?
Can you scroll through these? This is page 9, but there's another one.
There's another one that's sort of frontal.
Well, it's an open center. Yeah, it's open. That's very standard pool house.
Yeah, it's a very open setting.
And I just want to, while we're doing that, I want to just go back for 1 second to this whole openness concept, because I do want to remind the board that even if, which I do tend to disagree with, that the whole point of all of these easements was openness alone, because if you're standing in the middle of the ag reserve, yes, it's 14 acres. It is open on that. But you're saying that you have an issue with the visibility from their own house to the horse farm that they currently abut. Or I guess if you're on the horse farm, if you're one of the people that's riding on this private horse farm, the open issue is being able to see through their pool house to their house. I mean, we have to keep this relative to really what we're talking about, because
I think it's relative to why the agricultural overlay districts were created also, which was to...
So then let's go through that. Is that 255-330?
To reasonably control and to the extent possible prevent the unnecessary loss of those currently open lands and contiguous areas of prime. I just think it's in the language of open lands, and then all this development.
Right.
So,
blocked off, restricted.
So then let's talk about that, because this is open land. Why? Because the original house burned down. It's the only residential lot in the subdivision that is quote unquote open. It had a house on it from 89 until it burned down however many years ago. Open land, meaning open because it has prime agricultural soils. Theoretically, that's why the ag reserve is there, 14 acres of prime agricultural soils for agricultural use. And in fact, it's actually just a private horse farm. So it doesn't mean that they can't, it's openness, visibility, it's open, so it's not,
How do you know that?
It's open land, so it's not developed.
But how do you not know that? I mean, to me, the interpretation of open land means continuity from one lot to another in openness. And to me, the way the pool house at its scale and its siting is that it doesn't conform to that concept of open land.
The cabana on the neighboring lot is the exact same size, and it takes up basically, I've been to her house, I've hung out there, I've had coffee with the neighbor.
Okay.
It's on one of the aerials. Just keep going.
Can you, that actually be a good thing to bring up.
Yeah, I'd like Frank to finish his remarks, please. I'd like Frank to finish his remarks, please. Mrs. Guetta, could you please hold your remarks for a moment, please, and let Frank finish?
Yeah, well, actually, we should go to that rendering, because I think it actually is a good example of, if we could show that page. I think it's...
Yeah, it was where we were earlier, I think. No? There.
Right.
They're covering every square inch of that lot, and their lot is half the size, and it was approved. I've been in that cabana.
It's also about half the height of what you're proposing. It looks
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I think the height...
house?
It's not a two-story house. It was recently before us for a fence issue. I was the member who looked at it. The big difference is that this pool and pool house in the neighboring lot are almost on the agricultural reserve. The nice thing about tonight's application is it's very far set back. This first house on the right hugs that property and fills that property completely.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I understand that, but and I understand to the degree that we're comparing these things to the neighborhood, that's a relevant topic, but it's not, to my mind, exactly the point that Frank is trying to make with respect to the pool house. And I think that to my mind, the pool house, as I look at it here, kind of, I don't know what this is the right term, but it sort of crowds what I think is the nice design of the residence. I think it looks too tall to me. It looks out of proportion in that respect. So that's part of where, the open feeling of the field and so on. I understand how this is functioning. There are two smaller rooms with, a see-through element there that's, connected by some beams and so on. But I don't, I think
push back and say that
I'll give you the floor when I'm done, Ms. Guetta. I'll just when I'm finished, and I want to make sure that I understand Frank's point completely so that we can move this along a little bit. Is that what you were saying, Frank?
To me, it's the height in this. I made this comment earlier. It's the scale of the pool house relative to the main house. It doesn't read as accessory to the main house. I would also add that by connecting this, it gives I don't have in front of me what the footprint, the square footage of that structure is, but it's just it is reading as a continuous massing. And I realize that it's sort of like a trellis structure running between the two solid bookends of this, but it is reading as a large accessory structure.
Can I just make a comment? One is, I think this is becoming a matter of opinion about what people feel about the architecture rather than what is the actual law and guidance on these lots. I've been in the cabana on the lot next door. If you look at this is not the property neighboring me is half the size and covered in architectural structures. Mine is double the size and actually really open fields. And the reason why we created this structure was actually to be kind of like a complement to the neighbor's structure. It is really open. It has exactly the same size closed structure as the one next door. And if Jameson also wants to comment on her feelings towards this, we actually created all these trees also to help, because you guys were worried about the block, blocking our lot. So we added those trees to accommodate what you guys asked for in the last meeting.
Yeah, you guys can respond to the first part if you want more flesh out the pool house. But I'm glad that Jessica reminded me, because I do want to just make sure we're clear on the screening when we get to that. Because
the screening was what we added because we did it as per your request.
Right.
Where's the screening? What screening are we talking about?
We requested screening. I don't recall that.
You all.
I think the point was that the mass and scale was so substantial that it was going to loom on that property, so it would be seen. But I don't think we ever suggested that you put 30-foot evergreen hedge.
I didn't say that we were putting 30-foot evergreen hedge.
That's what's depicted in your landscape plan.
Okay, well, we can make them whatever you guys wanted. It's just we've been back to this board 10 times. We're following all the rules of the village. The house is in keeping with what you guys have asked for. I mean, I have spent $1 gazillion trying to make you guys happy and do exactly the type of house you want. I mean, I think this is becoming a matter of opinion rather than what's allowed by the law. There are houses on this block that also have 3-car garages. It's just, no matter what we do, we can't seem to make you guys happy. And it's just unfair. Okay. We own a 2-acre lot.
Listen, I'm going to just interrupt you one moment and just remind you that if there were 2 or 3 meetings at the beginning, those were all stutters because your applications were not complete. And so we've gotten to this point. I just want to make that clear.
Right. I think
they weren't complete or they weren't accurate. And this latest one is not accurate if it requires a 2-car garage and there's a 3-car garage. So we're back to inaccurate drawings again.
Right.
Well, there's nothing inaccurate about that. Come on.
Jameson,
Why
is
is that
there
in there?
anything inaccurate about that since there are other cars on this
Well,
agricultural?
we can
land?
discuss that, whether we may have missed that in the CNRs. We're saying that we'll go back and change that, but
Okay, so
but the inaccuracies, Chip, because you made some comments at the last meeting that quite frankly were pretty inappropriate.
okay, we're not going to go in there. I'm not going to have you reprimanding my board members.
No, I'm not,
sorry.
but
Yeah.
so he's bringing it up
You're
again.
gonna
What's
talk about
inaccurate?
look, I was not here for that meeting. We're not going to review that. Frank and I are new. We're dealing with it before us now. I'm not going to go back in time and say whatever. You know, one of the struggles, Ms. Guetta, that this board has is that when applications come before us, and this is a big project, and these bigger projects really require a lot of careful review, that sometimes we find that certain elements of information are missing. So then the applicant has to go back. We also give thoughtful consideration over discretionary areas over which this board has, we have the power as a board to have influence, have discretionary influence over design and scale and appropriateness for a neighborhood. I understand that you have, you feel some frustration. I'm still talking. I'm still speaking. I'll recognize you when I'm done.
Okay.
The idea here is we are trying to keep the scale of this, what we feel to be appropriate in the community. There are things that are missing here. You're going to have to come back with the garage change. You've proposed a garage with 3 cars. The documents that provided this land be able to be populated require you only have a 2-car garage. So right there, we've got to go back to the drawing board. We're asking you to reconsider the mass and scale of your pool house. I think Frank makes a good point. It's nice in its design, but I think it's the scale of it interferes with the building that you have as your residence. And these are legitimate concerns and areas over which we have jurisdiction. So
can I ask you one question?
Yes, you may ask a question. Please do.
If we remove the third car garage, let's say that covenant is true, can we get a conditional approval based on that removal? So that we could
I can't condition. No, we can't condition an approval. No, you'll have to come back to us with that. We have to see what it looks like.
If we come back with that garage removed, can we get an approval on this? Since
I can't guarantee any of that. I can't guarantee any of that. You're asking me to predict the future, and I'm not able to. I'm sorry.
This would be the same house without a 3rd-car garage. That's it.
I beg your pardon?
It would be the same house with a 3rd-car garage. I mean, the massing on this lot is so much less than the massing on the lot next door.
I understand your point. You've made it several times. I'd like to just move on here. I'd like to give you the appropriate information so that you can, inform the professionals that are helping you with this application and go forward. We have another application of this magnitude to get on tonight, and we're already we're way over time here. So
I was wondering if I could say a few things.
Pardon me?
I was wondering if I could say a few things or ask a few questions.
You are, who are you?
The architect for the project.
Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes.
Well, as you said, we did scale the house down from the last application. This rendering here doesn't do the pool house justice. I think it might be out of scale a little bit as far as the perspective, but as far as the scale of the pool house, if we were to, is it the footprint or is it just the mass? Can we just lower the roof or do we have to reduce the footprint as well? We need a little bit of guidance because we'd like to get through this in the near future.
Fair question. Yeah, it's a fair question.
I think footprint wise, it's fits with the neighboring pool house. Maybe just making the roof a little shallower, reduce the height would be an appropriate change, and maybe that's all that's required. I also want to point out that we've got a half acre of property behind the pool house that is being untouched, that is not being developed in an attempt to keep as much open as possible. And that doesn't even count the areas on either side of the pool house.
Yeah, we understand that. Thank you, sir. What is your feeling on the proposed, this recommendation from the architect, Frank?
I think lowering the roof line and maybe consider, I don't want to say this is where you should go, but in terms of scale, I mean, if you look at the neighboring property, the flat roof, I think that simply by having a flat roof brings the profile of it down substantially.
Right, that closes it off more by putting a flat roof. The whole beauty of having the open louvers.
I'm talking about the
yeah, you can
massing.
discuss that with your architect, Ms. Guetta. We'll have to. I mean,
You just don't want to keep coming back to the board and keep.
I understand. I understand.
Listen,
I understand your point. I have sympathy for you. I'd like to. If your architect has another question, I'd like to entertain it, and then we need to move on.
Well, we submitted a landscape plan. We submitted an aerial photo. Based on the last meeting, it shows, it shows the buffer area, the existing buffer area between our house and the highway. That seemed to be the sticking point last time, that this was going to be towering over Montauk Highway. And we spent a lot of money on these aerial photographs and renderings to show you that it wasn't. I think we might have missed, sir? We missed the covenant about the 2-car garage. But we did that in an attempt to scale down the mass of the building.
Right. What is your question, sir?
So we're saying basically.
I'm asking the architect what his question is.
That we've.
Question is, I think the house is appropriate if we reduce the house to the garage to 2 cars.
Okay, that's not a question.
The question is that all we would have to do to the house? Is the house would be acceptable?
Okay, that's a question.
Yes,
How do we feel about that? I need feedback from the board, please.
So can I just say one thing too, is that if you are going to plant that proposed vegetation plan with those trees, that's not, I mean, it's unlikely, but there's no guarantee that those are going to stay there indefinitely. Those aren't going to be planted in the scenic easement. So those could just be.
Yeah, they could be removed. Yeah. We're not in a position to require that, are we? The DRB can't require that kind of thing, right?
We can't require
landscape. Certainly, if the applicant is.
I think the applicant.
I'm going to say generally no. We're not able to require that under most circumstances. It's something that can be part of an approval, if agreed upon, and appropriate to screen certain things from view to protect the integrity of the community.
The last thing
I
want to
say,
can I just say one thing? Before we get off the phone, I really would like you guys to look at the front rendering of the cabana, because I really think that if you're seeing this view, it's probably out of scale. I would love you to look from the front at how open this is. Can you guys go? No, keep going.
It looks. Sorry to interrupt. It looks
keep
huge.
going. No. Can you guys keep going? Yeah. Okay. Go back. Go back.
We know the one you mean.
See how open this is? Like what is wrong with this structure?
I have said this before, and again, we do need to move on. I've made them. Yeah. That is it's my view, and this is not a subjective one, because we are tasked with judging also scale of buildings on this property. So it's really not. It is within our right to review this. The scale, the key is the word relative scale of this building relative to the house, and also relative to other accessory structures surrounding it. Massing, meaning the spatial volume that this is taking up, is substantial, as I see it.
Yes, and we've said that. That's been stated several times now. So we're going to move on.
Can I please,
you, applicant, we're going to send you a letter, Jameson, with the list of things that we need, and we'll make, can
I just ask in that letter can you address the screening? Because I'm not clear on.
I'm just saying those could be taken out at some point.
Well, after the last discussions, it seemed like the visibility was such a concern to the board that we proposed this screening to mitigate the visibility. And then tonight, it seems like you don't want the screening.
No,
So
that's not, I don't think that's the case. I think the concern is that the screening can be removed, that there's no obligation to keep the screening there, that we're grateful for the screening and that was a great feature. But if it's not something we can require as part of the application, and because it's ag overlay, you can basically clear it's 100% clearing is within the, you know this, you can clear it. So there's no guarantee that the screening you've put in will remain. That's all.
Okay, so that doesn't jive with some of Esperanza's like anecdotes of it will 30-foot wall, so it will feel like it's all closed in.
Well, jiving of that is basically, we're going to move on, but I am just saying that then also creates a corridor and it's not in keeping with them.
So we have the right to do that.
So that's it.
Okay, thanks very much, Jameson and Mrs. Guetta. Good luck with everything, and we'll get you a follow-up letter soon. We'll get you back on the agenda. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, next up, 290 East LP, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-189-6-11.3, 290 Further Lane. It's another ag overlay, Diane and Esperanza.
Okay.
God help us. It's a good thing we only have two tonight. If anyone's wondering why we only want to put two ag overlays on our agenda, this is why. Okay.
Now,
who's the applicant? Do we have the applicant present? I'm sorry. Who's representing this?
Yes, everybody, this is Eric Brown, Ackerman.
Oh, Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Kathy, how are you, everybody? I won't make small talk because I'm sure that's the last thing at this point in the evening you want to hear. Eric Brown, Ackerman Partners, 34 Panago Road for the applicant. Okay. I'm joined by Val Florio, who's the project architect. Okay. This project, just so everybody knows, was...
hold on, Eric. I just wanted to make sure you were here. We're going to let our board members review it, and then we'll hear from you, okay? Thank you.
That's perfectly fine.
All right. Diane and Esperanza, please.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay. I think that we should begin by saying this is a proposal for a new residence on the ocean on Further Lane. We had many comments about the inappropriateness of the initial proposal, about the sort of strident nature of the building in context with the neighbors and everything. And I have to say they have come back to us with a very different proposal. It's not necessarily smaller, it's somewhat smaller, but it is much subtler. I have taken some pictures of exactly the circumstances from Further Lane, and if we could show them instead of showing this. Okay. So this is Further Lane. This is the private road that you enter toward the property. And show the next picture. Okay, this is after there are two houses between Further Lane and the ag overlay, which fronts the property. So keep going. Okay, this begins the ag overlay, which is to the left. And this is the entire ag overlay, and this is the residence in question that is not to be demolished. It is to be donated to Project Most at the expense of the new owners. The house to the, would you go back, please? The house to the left is the existing house. I mean, we're in a neighborhood of gigantic houses, and you see that the existing house to the left is a very large house. So that is the circumstances. And I think if we put next up, instead of the new plans, the big plans, if we put up the addendum, which shows the original proposal and the current proposal, that might be the best way for everyone to grasp.
And is it this house that's being moved and donated, the one you just showed us?
Yes, that house is being donated.
That house is being moved?
Yeah, probably in pieces.
I don't know. It's going to be assembled, or I am told by Mr. Brown's firm that that this will allow for the donation by the owner of the existing home to Project Most rather than demolition, plus a substantial donation to rebuild the center. Project Most. So
That's absolutely correct.
okay. So the bottom of the White House is what was initially proposed, and we felt particularly that it was a very glaring, monolithic. It didn't have anything to do with surrounding neighbors. Now, you can see that they have changed the fenestration on the above one. They have changed this roof line. This is over an indoor pool. The existing house has an indoor pool too.
The existing house has an indoor pool? No.
I think so, yes. I think so.
Yes, it does.
And the and of course the coloring and the nature, the whole nature, it's become much more subtle. And I think in keeping, I mean, while maintaining its sort of singular character, it's more in keeping in color and feel with the surrounding shingle style gigantic houses. This is a neighborhood of huge houses in the splendid special places. So I think we should. Esperanza, what would you like to say?
I'm just sorry, I got kind of sidetracked. I didn't know that the existing house has an indoor pool. I was under the impression.
I don't mean to interrupt, but Val, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You are. And it's in the same location, Esperanza. It's on the eastern side of this house.
Oh, it's interesting. It's not touted on the real estate listing. That's why I questioned it. And also because I was led to believe there was only the outside pool because that was the one feature that was being maintained versus everything else being taken away. Okay, so no, I'm sorry, Diane. I agree with you about just the new design is much more favorable. Is the actual roof, like, is the height lower than the original proposal? It seems that way, but is it just a perception?
I think so. I think that it's my understanding, maybe Mr. Florio should explain. It is my understanding that they have reduced the square footage by changing the height of this whole pavilion over the pool, and it's not. They've reduced the glass greatly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if I could answer those questions. So the mass of the house over the pool section has reduced. And I think to your point, and thank you for such a detailed introduction, just in keeping with the existing shingle style houses on the way to this property, the color scheme is much more harmonious, and the before and after is remarkable since we saw you back in December, but changes were made to reduce the scale. It is a large house, but because of the 15-foot height, we have to include living space 2 times. So with reduction, it's helped on paper make this house smaller, but it sort of speaks for itself. If you flip to even the rear elevation, which is the next sheet, it shows, it sort of blends in. If I might say the color scheme is something that's more discreet and it's a softer look, but there's also less glass on the back of the house too. So there's about 11 revisions, and the cover, the first sheet goes through each one, but it's more traditional, if you will. everything from the roof to the textures. There's no glass handrails. Balusters or wood. So it's a more traditional look, but it's still, the bones of the house are the same. The floor plan is more or less the same.
What's the square footage of this new proposal?
The house is in the neighborhood of 16,000, but we have to include the indoor pool with the height above. We also have double height space in the entry foyer. So,
right. And what was the square footage of the house that's going to be taken away?
It's close to 12,000.
So it's not that, it's a little bit bigger.
Right. But the inclusion of the 15-foot, with the code
ceilings.
Yeah. Right. So it doesn't, I guess by rights, if I could reduce and say, okay, this house is 2,000 square feet smaller, but by dint of the pool, indoor pool, having a higher than 15-foot portion of ceiling, it has to be included in the tabulation.
So it seems to me one change that seems significant, if I'm reading this right so we're looking at the oceanside elevation. The previous submission on the right, and I think that's in the pool area, is that right?
Yes.
The roof was glass, but that has since been replaced with
like a clear story.
A clear story. So we wouldn't have to worry about light emission as much. Okay. And the height is the same, correct?
It is. If we could go back 2 more pages, just very quickly. So there's the initial rendering. It says 2021 submission, and it had a glass roof on the pool house, which on the top left is difficult to see, but there's a roof over the glass. Mm-hmm. So it's much more friendly in terms of being dark sky compliant.
Yeah.
And then to the right of that, there's a hip roof, still at the top, a little higher. It's called revision number 6. There's a hip roof over the master bedroom. Right. Yes. Yeah. And that eliminated lots of glass. So there's less fenestration on the house, including on the roadside. But it looks less like a hospital and more like a home now. So I used to be on the ARB in Sag Harbor, so excuse me, I know how punch drunk you get after 3 hours of this. And it's I'm pleased with the changes. It's very earthy, organic looking.
It's much nicer.
One small comment I have, and I'm curious what other board members think, is that the volume so we're looking at the front of the house as you approach the house. The volume, which is the garage volume, I actually think one of the things that is kind of architecturally nice and compelling is the continuation that was in the previous one of the relationship of the top windows to the bottom ones. So 2 windows have been removed at the garage, and personally, I think that would look more cohesive to bring those 2 windows back in the front of the garage, so it's not so it mirrored the top.
Yes.
So the board, I'm talking about the top right rendering,
right?
The first floor, that single window, we're bringing back 2 windows flanking it.
There's 3 windows on top now when there were 4 windows before.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, it faces the agricultural overlay. It faces no one. I mean, so the whole idea of how the fenestration and the emitting of light, I mean, it's and plus it's a 6-acre lot, and they are calling for more heavily landscaping between the house and the ag reserve. So it's not a question of just glare or disturbing people, because it's facing nothing.
And I think just to remind the board, I think in the last iteration, and as everyone will remember, this was before before Kathy's tenure as chair. One of the concerns that was expressed was the fenestration, and Val has been very cognizant, particularly on the landward side of the house, with trying to keep the fenestration under control for reasons of light leakage and that kind of thing. But if the board would like to see those two windows come back, then that's, I can't imagine that anyone would, on our side, would object to that.
No.
Personally, I don't see a point for windows to a garage. Is that at the garage?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see what you mean about sort of the balance of it. On the other hand, it has this sort of, I don't know, simpler. I mean, if you were to add, I would add one window, not two more. I don't know. That symmetry would, to me, just become like window, 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 and not.
Right. I would add to that comment that we have a lot of mature trees on the property. And for the sake of, trying to illustrate or demonstrate the proposal, these renderings don't show the magnitude of plantings. Some of the renderings which I had on the previous PDF, which were pulled up, shows all the trees. And there are a lot of mature trees on site, which we intend to keep. So, yeah, on the bottom, or if you keep, I guess the cover sheet might show, but we would like to keep, this sort of shielded, if you will, as it currently is. And I think the next page might show,
So wait a minute. So here
there was no garage
no window. And see, I was just going to suggest that.
Oh,
yeah, because we could put a small tree. There'd definitely be some trees, but whatever the board prefers. I don't think it's necessary to have windows, but it certainly looks a lot better than 8 windows on the front.
Yeah.
To me, this looks a little
wonderful.
I actually prefer this. This is a little more serene.
I do too. I love the choice of the new materials and the coloration and the limestone and the stucco. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's all Val. The lawyers have nothing to say about stucco or limestone. Thank God.
Thank heavens for that.
As my wife will tell you, I'm not allowed to mess in those areas. That's.
So Val, those two walls at those two stucco walls of the garage on the first floor, I'm looking at that volume sticking out. Were those removed by choice from a design decision, or was it removed feeling that the board, this was an attempt to reduce the glazing penetration?
A little bit of each, answer your question. Yes, from an aesthetic, because if you look at the previous submittal, this has come light years in terms of being much more, as I said, residential-like. But I think the overabundance of glass just, was not pleasing, to say the least. So, yeah.
And again, I would defer to the board members that were there for the discussion. My impression, Frank, was that there was some desire to knock down the amount of glass on the landward side, and so I think that's what Val was trying to do. But as I said, we don't have a dog in that particular fight. Whatever the board, feels is appropriate is certainly what we'll do.
Yeah. So I apologize that I'm new to this.
No, not at all.
I mean, to me,
that's perfectly
in
fine.
terms of light admittance, my view would be in terms of light admittance to the ocean side is more important because
they're equally important. Yeah.
Well, the ocean side from the dune is visible from public space, which is the beach.
Right.
Whereas this is where mean, there's overall light emittance from a property, but in terms of this side it is private.
Correct. If I could just briefly address, this new house is 78 feet closer to the north, so it cannot be seen from the ocean. And I think that there's merit in that, despite the fenestration, there's no way to see this new house from anywhere on the ocean. And in fact, it's going to really open up the neighbor's view, both to the east and west. But we're being considerate because it is an ag reserve, although it's a private reserve. You sort of have to go down this private flag lot to even come upon this reserve. It will have lots and lots of screening, and the last page of this PDF will illustrate that. This, if you keep going all the way down, that's the reserve. And you can see the trees are very mature, but most of them in the average of 25 feet. And you can see some semblance of mature trees, which are, we're going to relocate. And this house is actually moving right to where the driveway would be. So not visible from the ocean, and unless someone meanders down this 6-acre property, this house is something you won't readily come across.
So in terms of moving forward, if we were to move forward on this application, can I ask, are there any lights on the exterior that we would need to review on the elevation?
Yes. So we have a few. There's only 2 porches on the back of the house, and we have a front door light and some lights on the garage. And they're indicated on the floor plan of the bigger set, but this set shows the lights. Everything is dark sky compliant. And we went so far to recess the lights inside the walls.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, there's a detail on the
Very
top.
thoughtful. I think everything is very thoughtful.
Thank you.
Okay. So is this what we were missing earlier in the week?
So the roof is slate throughout.
Yes.
Yes. So nice.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
Are there any more?
Yeah. Does anybody else have any more questions for the applicant? Or any concerns about this that we should entertain before moving forward?
Well, I'm kind of still stuck on the mass of it. I think you said it was it's a 12,000 square foot house. I was under the impression that it was about 10, which is approximately the same as the surrounding houses. I mean, this is clearly so much more. I don't know.
Well, I think the house next door is massive. So, this is a very special place, and there's always been huge houses,
always is not the case.
Recently, I think the mitigating factor here is it's about the same size as the house that's being taken away,
but it's not. It's actually 4,000 square feet more.
But it's got some double space, double height living rooms and pool areas, but it's not that much larger. I think
that's 2 of my houses larger.
Well,
yeah, but
I guess the relevant issue here is whether the house that's being proposed is the mass and scale of it that much different than the house that's currently there, and that would have a better, to my mind, that has a
not when I saw that first slide of what the houses that's being removed, it looked huge to me. But they're both huge houses, but that's the nature of this area at this time.
And I don't understand the calculations then of the square footage, because I don't understand how I see 10 or 12,000 in one area, but then the actual footprint looks, you're indicating that it's about the same.
Well, the blue portion is the existing house, and you can see it's longer than the proposed. But the blue house doesn't, or footprint, I should say rather, we're not including the 15-foot height as it applies to the indoor pool. So as it goes apples to apples, if we were to take the 15-foot height out of our proposal, we're getting very close in scale. And to the comment about the neighboring home, there is a Google view which shows the neighbor to the west, and our proposed house is more or less on par with what they have.
Really?
These are quite large houses. I mean, it's code compliant. It meets all zoning and building regulation. But I understand your comment about mass and scale, which is what the purview of the board typically is doing. And,
we did try to be responsive to those concerns within the context of a project of this size. And I understand, Esperanza, it's my house would fit in a tiny little corner of this thing too. So, I understand what you're saying, but I think we're trying to keep some level of equivalence with what's there now. And, for what it's worth, in my opinion, I think quite honestly, this sitting in the landscape is somewhat less pronounced than the house that's there now. That,
further back from the ocean. Yeah. I mean, how many houses get moved further back from the ocean? Not many. They want to be right on the ocean.
So in terms of scale, I think this point about square footage is a good one, maybe for the board to be aware of, that I believe and Val, please correct me if I'm wrong, that square footage in this house for a double height space is counted twice. If it's that's correct?
Over 15 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
So perhaps, I don't know if you have it here, but it seems for me a metric that is good to compare existing and proposed is building coverage, which is what is the footprint of the building on the soil, on the land of the existing versus proposed. Is that maybe on the architectural drawings, like on a front? I don't know if you included it, but that would be on an application. Kind of a standard metric is building coverage and lot coverage. So, do you happen to have the building coverage existing and proposed
on the survey? Isn't it?
Isn't that what we're looking at?
Yes. I did bring that point up briefly when we first met in December, and the discussion was abruptly, shut down in terms of the square footage, because the board is here to look at really the aesthetic versus, the floor plans. And as a former ARB member myself, we did look at floor plans for the basis of, how large is this? Could we do anything to mitigate size? But we're looking at a 6-acre parcel, and it's commensurate with the size of the property. And this is not the type of ag reserve, which is, in the middle of Wayne-Scott, where cars and people are walking and driving by. And open space is critical.
I think, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that what Frank is saying is, we're trying to move our understanding of this along to say, what is the footprint? What is the square footage of the footprint, to compare it to the square footage of the footprint of what's currently there, and also other houses in the area. So I understand that the first discussion went differently because of the mass and scale and general design of it. So probably square footage was not top of mind. But do you have those numbers? Is that depicted somewhere here? Because that would just help us in our review of this and our understanding of what we're looking at and what we're comparing it to.
Yeah.
On the
And
survey,
Survey.
sorry, if I could just add also, you mentioned 6 acres, but what proportion of that is the ag reserve?
A little over. Let's see what the survey says.
permitted lot coverage.
Survey says.
Coverage and I'm sorry this is a long evening, but if the survey could be pulled up.
I have the survey. The permitted lot coverage is 17,778 feet. The proposed lot coverage of the first proposal is 15,409 square feet. Now, I don't know how much the new house.
That's what we're trying to understand.
How much the lot coverage differs, but this was the November 11th, 2021 survey.
If I can just add a fact in there, just so you know, as far as how the code reads, I totally understand the concept, and the question here is basically, what portion of the buildable, what percentage of the buildable portion of this lot is covered by structure under the proposal. But technically, you would calculate the lot area for this property, including the agricultural reserved area. So it's, and kind of the idea behind that is to not penalize someone for providing an easement. So, the entirety of the property, the area that's able to be built upon, and the agricultural reserved area, that is the lot area as it's defined in the code, and that's how you would derive the total lot coverage.
Right.
But
Thank you for reminding us about that, Eric, but I don't think that was Frank's point.
I think that was my question. I just
I can
wanted to
answer very quickly. The existing total lot coverage is 14%.
Okay.
Proposed total lot coverage is 12. So it's a 4,000 square foot reduction in lot coverage.
That's
what about building coverage? Is that listed? The difference, just to let people know, lot coverage includes impermeable surfaces, includes the pool house, that includes.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, again, to jump in, Will zoomed in here on the coverage calculations, as you can see in the lower left-hand portion. It's a little bit of a confusing term, but lot coverage is the same as building coverage. Total lot coverage is what Frank was just mentioning, the total amount of impervious surface on the property. But the term lot coverage, which is a little misleading, is synonymous with building coverage. That's just roof structures. Total lot coverage is driveways, pools, patios, roof structures, all that stuff. So that's
so this coverage calculation where it says existing lot coverage, that's what is presently existing, which gets to the point I think Frank was trying to make earlier of 8,827 square feet. And permitted is 17,778, and the proposed is 15,409.
Exactly. Right? The total area of roofed structure, which is essentially here the residence, is increasing significantly. The total lot coverage.
Okay. Yeah, that was the point. Yeah, that's what we were trying to understand, I think.
One thing to note, Frank, is that the covered porch area of the existing house, it's a shingle style house, so it's not included in terms of, I don't believe it's included as building coverage. It's there's a lot of covered porch on the front and the ocean side of the existing dwelling. But I mean, all this to say, the merit of the application is that shouldn't necessarily be based on, the increase. It's proportionate to the lot, and in terms of the architecture, it's much more in harmony with the other houses. And it is in accordance with code. So there's no neighbors, not that you would have to go back and look at the Google, but this house is something that can't be perceived by any neighbor to the east or west or from the ocean.
Yeah. So my conclusion of this, maybe we could show like a site plan showing surrounding lots or a satellite image, is that the proposed, listen, it's a huge house.
I can show the aerial if you want, Will, if you stop thank you. Hopefully you all can see that now.
Mm-hmm.
It's listen, it's a huge house. There's no one denies that. But
where are we?
It's basically dead center. I will highlight it again.
Yeah.
This
See,
property right
an important thing that I'm seeing is that the house is not further seaward of, it's keeping in line relative to the ocean front, to other properties, surrounding properties. If not, I think it should be noted, pulling the chip noted, pulling it away from the ocean side is a significant move that should be noted. I think that it's a huge house, but a lot of the houses here are
the neighborhood of huge houses.
Yes.
So in a way, it's not completely out of context.
No.
So what's our next step here?
Well, there's nothing missing from this application, right? Now that we have this revised view.
It's very complete.
If people are, I could tell that Esperanza has got some reservations, but if you want to express those, I think we need to give the applicant an indication here of whether we're willing to accept this plan as proposed or not. In a perfect world, I think all these things would be smaller. I tend to agree with Esperanza that these massive homes, even though they are in an area of massive homes, are just not, the scale of it just feels out of whack to me. But it's not, I see what's happened here. I think the plans are nice. I think the building is a big improvement. I agree with the color choices. I think it's quite lovely. It's still too big for my tastes, but I'm finding it hard to recommend a smaller building in terms of the scale and harmony with the neighborhood to justify the applicant going back and making it smaller still. So I feel like, I'm ready to move this along. If other people are, I don't know how,
Well, if it were up to me, I would make a motion to approve this application.
Esperanza, do you want to say something more? I feel like,
Well, I drew the parallel at the last meeting. I said, this is like taking the Maidstone Club and putting it on this property. And I understand all the arguments about how you cannot see this from the ocean and there's no public view and this and that and the other. I just think that there's a reason for an agricultural overlay and there's a reason there's an ag reserve, and I'm trying to respect that. And I feel like this pushing this to the maximum limit of the code, which is even larger, I think, than a big box store can be, is unacceptable to me.
But Esperanza, I've talked to several people who know this property and have visited recently, and when I told them it was on an ag overlay, they said, "Oh, no, Chip, that's the front lawn. You don't understand." So this doesn't feel like an ag overlay. It will never.
It doesn't matter what it feels like, Chip. It's what is in the books, and I am respecting that. That's
yeah,
all.
I mean,
right, but no one's going to be growing corn.
I don't want to argue about it, honestly.
Okay,
I'm just stating my opinion.
We're going along. Let's, it's fair enough. I'm grateful for everyone trying to find a happy medium here. I prefer a consensual board review of things. I would like it if everybody saw things the same way, but they don't always. Reasonable people can disagree, and that may be where we have to be right now. It's never been my understanding that the purpose of the ag overlay designation was to permit really big houses, but as Eric puts it, it's not meant, when people provide that that easement or whatever restriction, they're not meant to be penalized too. I wish it was smaller. My theory would be to write to the town board and say, make the houses, the opportunity for houses to be smaller. But I don't think we're in that position right now. So I'd like to, if someone would make a motion, I think we can move along on this. Unless anybody else has anything else to add.
I would like to make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Let me have a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so Esperanza's opposed. And so, okay, well, passed and carried. And thank you for working with us. And good luck to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
House is getting a good house, a good home too.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, well, it's a long one, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hear you.
Eric. Nice to see you.
It was nice to see you too. It was nice to see all of you. Thank you very much. Have a good
Bye
evening.
now. Okay, next, Adam Aaron and Alexander Shapiro, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-199-1-1.2 has been postponed at the request of the applicant. Now we're into the issuance of certificates of occupancy. Timothy Milford, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-63-1-10-929 Springs Fireplace Road, East Hampton. Chip, this is yours.
This application is for C of O for a pair of new gates and new stone piers. We last looked at this at our August 13th, 2020 meeting, and we asked the applicant to move the existing piers and gate back on the property. That property underwent substantial renovation, and we asked that the new piers and gates be 6 feet or less. I measured all of this. They're exactly at 72 inches or 6 feet. The thing has been beautifully executed, and it's now 50 feet off the road. It's set very far back. I think this is a win-win for everyone. It's one of the most tasteful set of gates and piers I have seen. Now, we have some photos of it if the board would like to see them.
Sure. Oh, those are nice.
So this is the new gates and the piers, and that's a frontal view, and that's 50 feet back from, this is way, way up on Springs Fireplace Road.
Yeah, it's lovely. Looks nice.
So any comments, or can we move on?
None for me. Anybody have any comments? Okay, could you make a
Sure.
motion?
I make a motion to approve this application for a request for certificate of occupancy and instruct staff to notify the building department that this property is ready for a C of O.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so passed and carried. Thank you, Chip. David Gregory Scarf, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-112-2-6.2, 78 Bull Path, East Hampton. Esperanza.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have the resolution in front of me, but my recollection is that this was a resolution that for a driveway gate and a pedestrian gate approved at a maximum height of 8 feet. And so I have visited the site, and the dimensions that I was able to get on the driveway gate, it was a little difficult because there's the cattle walk there. So no matter how I approached it, whether from inside the property or outside the property, I would have killed myself on that.
People don't realize what a hazard it is to be an ARB member.
And a deer. I mean, it's like overkill between the cattle walk and the gate.
Right.
However, it measured approximately 7.5 feet. So actually, I think below the 8 feet on the resolution.
Good. That's different.
And the posts were approximately, they were taller. They were about 8.5 to 8.6, around 8.5. So that, but the ground there is a little bit, again, I was trying to measure, and I measured the one on the left that we're seeing here.
Right.
The other one looks even taller, frankly, but so That's the dimension I got for that. And with the pedestrian gate, that was 7.5 feet. So this is Bull Path toward the Swamp Road area. It is very, very tucked back. I took pictures if you wanted to go on so you could see it from the road. You cannot see this. My only question was regarding the fencing. And if Julie, could you just take a look at the resolution? I just don't know if that was part of this or if we were just to look at the driveway gates. Because, and if we could look at the survey, because there's a whole bunch of 8-foot ag fencing in the wooded area just to the right of this driveway. And I couldn't quite tell if this was this applicant's or whose, and whether that was part of the approval.
The resolution, I have it here from whenever it was, August 8th, 2019, resolved that the board approved an 8-foot driveway gate with 8-foot posts as well as an 8-foot pedestrian gate. Also approved was 8-foot deer fencing on the west and east portion of the property as indicated on the stamped approved survey.
So those are the highlighted portions here. Okay.
Yes,
all right. So that fencing that's toward the road is the neighbors. Okay. Then I think this all complies, yes, with the resolution. And so I would instruct staff to advise the building department that this application is ready for a certificate of occupancy.
Have a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, none so carried. All right, well, I'll take a motion to adjourn. I just want to thank you all. This is the hardest working board I've ever served on, and I appreciate everyone's efforts. I know this was a long night. I want to appreciate staff and the applicant's patience. I'm sorry I got a little testy there for a while, but this Zoom stuff sometimes makes it very difficult for people when we talk over one another. So we meet again on March 10th. I will not be here. I'll be traveling that day. Esperanza will lead our discussions in my absence, and onward. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned, everyone. Good night.